Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Somos Mas, the official podcast of Somos Mas NM and your source for the latest news and notes on New Mexico United and the New Mexico Runners. My name, of course, is Seth Benoff. We have a special guest with us here tonight. We've got a fantastic show lined up. Can't wait to get into it. Joining me tonight, as you guys can see, we've got Jacob Turrell, Earl Nieto, and our special guest, Director of Communications and Fan Experience for New Mexico United, David Carl. David, first off, thank you so much for being here with us this evening. And a big thank you and congratulations to you and Chanel. So please thank her for allowing you to join us this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Chanel is, I think, hanging out in the other room and maybe falling asleep. So I may get up and shut the door here in just a little bit so I don't wake her up.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. And, Jacob and Earl, obviously, their wives are nearby and Jacob's got kids. So, we understand, so, but yeah, we appreciate you being here. We've got a whole bunch to get to this evening. First thing, I do have one burning question for all three of you. Does the men's national team somehow bottle their chances at qualifying tomorrow?
No. Don't put that bad juju out here. What are you doing?
I have to ask because, last time.
You do not.
All they had to do last time was draw against Trinidad and Tobago, and they couldn't even do that. So.
Yeah, but this is a much, much lower bar. They just have to not lose by 6. I mean,
yeah.
I think they'll be okay. If not, they should just dismantle the program. Right?
And it's a much better team than 4 years ago. So I'm not worried at all. And how dare you even put that into the universe?
I have my answer from President Trump.
On it. I may do it.
Damn it,
I may do it. And I can do
Why?
it if I want.
Why?
We can do it through a negotiated process. We're giving that a shot. But I am allowed to do that, yes. I haven't done it.
Oh, Earl.
So that's the only one I had, so we're out of luck now.
Okay.
I burned through it.
Oh,
And
wow.
unfortunately, it had to be that one. So
2 minutes into the show, and you had to pull the president into this.
2:30.
2 minutes.
2:30. Former president.
All right. Well, anyway, so yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I think, like you said, Jacob, the team is much better this time around after the performance against Panama on Sunday night. I'm pretty confident in how they're looking. Maybe we see some guys get a few extra minutes that they wouldn't normally see in this match. But
I'd love to see Gio Reyna get some time in there. He got a little bit towards the end of that match, but I mean, the fact that they won as convincingly as they did without some of the best players, no Wes McKinney in there, and Christian Pulisic did great, but 2 of his goals were, via penalty as well. And I would bet the farm that they are not going to bottle a 6-goal differential advantage.
all right. Well, good to know. Good to know. And, but yeah, like I said, we've got a whole bunch to get to tonight. David, I kind of let you know ahead of time that we're going to talk about Open Cup, and I told the guys to get some questions ready. We had a couple questions pop up over on Reddit to ask you as well. But first and foremost, I want to go back to 2019. Now, at that time, you were the president of the Curse. You were involved deeply with that. I think you were at all of the matches during Open Cup run. And I know particularly you were at Minnesota.
Oh yeah. I missed that Phoenix match. But other than that, I was at all the Open Cup matches.
Okay. Yeah. So going back to that, being able to be there in person for that run, watching United take down 2 MLS clubs, take down, Colorado Springs, and going through that, what was that like as traveling as a fan to those matches?
Incredible. First and foremost, I think, and I tell people this all the time, I think that match in Denver against Colorado Rapids may be the best sports moment of my life. Because when we went up there and we won that match, it was for the first time we were saying as New Mexicans that we belonged. We could compete at any level. We can compete with the MLS clubs, and we showed the world on that day that we could. Dallas was the icing on the cake, to go in there and get that win after the fact, but to do it in the dramatic fashion that we did in Denver, to beat the MLS team for the first time, to be the David beating Goliath. I cried when we won that match. I have no shame in saying that. I was in the stadium, and when that last penalty went in, I lost it. I was not the only one. It was incredible. And just the excitement surrounding that tournament Getting the buses together for that, long bus ride to Denver, and then an even longer one to Dallas, and then we're on the way back from Dallas. So get on the bus after we win that in dramatic fashion as well. And I get a bunch of texts from a bunch of people saying, "Hey, are we getting a bus to Minnesota?" To which I said, "Absolutely not." That's like a 36-hour bus ride, I think. But man, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. It was so much fun.
Talking about that Minnesota trip, I looked around. I couldn't really find the story of how that came together in the first place. Now, First Financial obviously, did funded that and help with that. How did that come about? How involved were you with that process, and or was that more like the club and First Financial?
Yeah, all the above, actually. So as I mentioned, I'm on the bus on the way back from Dallas. We are overjoyed, jubilant, also really dehydrated because they ran out of water in Dallas, and it was super hot and humid. But we're on the bus, and I'm starting to get these texts asking, are we getting a bus to Minneapolis? And of course, I said no. But in my head, I'm thinking, okay, how can we afford to get there? Selfishly, I'm thinking, how can I afford to get there first, right? How can I get there? So I start looking at flights from Albuquerque to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they are crazy expensive. It was something like $800 round trip. And I was like, I can't afford that. And I'm sure most of our fans can't afford that. And so in my head, I'm thinking we're not gonna be able to do it. Not gonna be able to go. We're gonna have to watch this one at home. And it was a little disappointing, but at the same time, we're like, we got watch parties, we can have a great time with it. It'll be good. And so that's what I'm telling people. And then, went and had a conversation with Pete on the bus, on the phone, just talking about it. And he says to me, well, why don't we get an airplane? And I thought he was joking. I laughed. I thought he was joking. I was like, yeah, let's get an airplane, Pete. Let's just, go to the old airplane store and buy us an airplane for airplane trips. I guess at the time I thought he was joking, but I guess he was serious because we spent the next 7 days essentially, and I did not work for the club at the time, but I spent the next several days at the front office alongside Ron Patel and Peter and Clint Gray, who didn't work for the team yet either, who was just a big fan like I was. He worked at First Financial Credit Union, and First Financial was a sponsor of the club. And he went to his people there at First Financial and said, hey, can you maybe throw a couple bucks in to help supplement the cost? And they said, yeah, no problem. So they're going through, we're having meetings with them. And then one of the head guys there comes in and says, well, what if we really put in a lot of money? What if we did this contest to get people on the plane? And what if we really supplemented the cost so that everybody could go? Because what we were initially thinking was, could you pay for a few people to go? Could we have a contest? Could you pay for 3 people to go? We'll have everybody compete, and 3 people will go and represent New Mexico United, and it'll be awesome. But then they came back and they said, well, what if we did this? And what if we pledged this much larger amount of money? And we said, okay, if we get that amount of money, we'll take these plane tickets. And we can reach out to an airline. So we reach out to Sun Country Airlines. We find a hotel. And okay, if you do that, we could do this whole trip for all these people for $300, $400. And that's what we did. It was insane. I didn't think it was going to come together like that. We were just hoping to get a few people there. But First Financial and the hard work of Peter and Ron and Clint really made that happen. And it was the coolest thing.
Obviously, being there at Minnesota, it's a much larger atmosphere than what everyone's used to playing here in Albuquerque. To see Santi get that opening goal, what was running through your head, being there in person at that time?
So as a capo, I pride myself on making sure I keep my voice throughout the entirety of the match, right? You gotta yell, you gotta cheer, but you gotta preserve some vocal cords. My vocal cords were gone in the 9th minute at that match. When Santi scored, along with everybody else there, we lost our minds. Oh my God, we're going to do it again. This is crazy. We did it in Denver. We did it in Dallas. And we're in one of the best stadiums in all of the United States, one of the most beautiful soccer stadiums I've ever been in my life. And against a team, by the way, that played all of their starters in that match. That was not a B team. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my God, we're going to do this again. And then the rest of the match happened. We didn't do it again, but it was just so cool to be in that incredible stadium and to really just have our own little pie wedge. I'm sure you guys have seen the photos, that wedge of just a sea of yellow and a sea of black and yellow. And, we're surrounded by Minnesota fans, but that was the loudest section of the stadium. That was the most energetic corner of the stadium. And when Santi scored that goal, it was absolute bedlam.
Yeah, we always see that United obviously travels well. We were down in El Paso last week, a couple weeks ago for the match down there, and a couple hundred supporters there, not only in where the Curse had a block, but throughout the stadium. Different United supporters were there. In 2019, the club didn't get to host an Open Cup match. Now there was a lot of speculation as to why that was the case. Now, obviously, we know a lot of it has to do with the isotope scheduling and different things along those lines. Fast forward to now, we haven't had an Open Cup for the past 2 years, obviously because of COVID. But the cup is back, and the club announced a few weeks ago that we are hosting a match over at UNM. And in a conversation that we had down at Mesa del Sol, you told me that you were actually the one that was kind of involved with making sure that this is set up, talking to Open Cup, and I'm assuming USSF as well, to make sure that everything was aligned. So what's that process like from the club perspective, getting into Open Cup, and then the process of hosting a match?
Yeah, absolutely. So U.S. Soccer comes to all of the eligible clubs, and that's at any level, right? You could be NPSL, you could be USL League 2, you could be MLS, whatever. And they let you know, like, hey, you're playing in this round. So for us, the second round is where we enter. And these are the potential dates of that second round. So that would be April 4th, 5th, and 6th for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And do you have a facility that can host you for those on those dates? And so for us, we went to the potential facility. So that's Isotopes Park and UNM, the women's soccer facility there. Isotopes were unable to do so. They've got some stuff we got to deal with the field. Totally get it. So we go to UNM, and UNM is gracious enough to say, yeah, absolutely, you can host the match here. We've got a facility for you. So we go back to US Soccer. We say, hey, we can do it on these dates. They say, okay, great. We'll get back to you after the draw. And so then they do the draw. We're drawn against either Park City Red Wolves or Las Vegas Legends. And they tell us this is the date you're doing it on. So we've got it on the 5th there, on Tuesday the 5th. Mm-hmm. And then obviously they play the match between Park City and Las Vegas, and we find out we're playing Las Vegas. I mean, that's kind of the overview of it. There's a lot more obviously that goes into it. We got to figure out, what's parking going to be like? Where can media be? How do credentials work? We got to figure out a seating map. How much are tickets going to cost? All that kind of stuff that we typically do at Isotopes Park. And we've got a really nice system at Isotopes Park where we know what we're doing because we've been doing it for 4 years, minus the one that we didn't play a home game. So we know how to plug stuff in. It's a little different in Isotopes. We got to use a different ticketing system, all that kind of stuff. At UNM, we got to use a little bit of a different ticketing system, and all those things we need to figure out logistically, concessions, all that kind of stuff. But that's the boring piece of it. The important thing is we've got a place to play a home match for the first time in the history of the Open Cup. And that is thrilling. That is exciting. We get to host it here for the first time and hopefully come out with a win against Las Vegas.
The club has played over at UNM twice before, once against Cardiff City, and then once we had an inter-squad match when Colorado couldn't come down. How do you think this is going to compare turnout-wise, and what's been done over at the soccer complex to help prepare for this?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually talking to one of the associate athletic directors in charge of facilities. His name's Matt today, and one of the things that's really interesting with regard to it is you got to remember we're still in March. It'll be April, obviously, when we play the match, and the field is still dormant. The soccer field is still dormant, so it's not quite as green as it'll be. So that's something to consider when you got to line the field, right? So typically on a soccer field, white lines, obviously. White lines won't show up very well on a yellow field because it's dormant. So it's one of the things we're like, okay, do we do black? Do we do red? That kind of stuff. Then we have to go back to US Soccer. And it's these little tiny logistical things that you have to go back and get figured out. Like, are we allowed to have black lines? Is that something that US Soccer would allow? And turns out, yes. So we'll either have black or red lines during that match. But as far as kind of turnout, it'll be interesting to see because it is midweek, right? Tuesday, we've only done, I think, one ever Tuesday match in the history of our club. And so this will be the second. So I'm really interested to see what the turnout will be like. Really, it's the first one, though, that technically matters, right? That we played at UNM. So Cardiff was a friendly. It was a lot of fun. We wanted to win, all that kind of stuff. Kenny Akamatsu had the best match of his life, I think, in that match. It was great. And then the other one is obviously an inter-squad friendly, and we're just trying to get warmed up and make sure we don't hurt anybody. So this will be the first one that matters, and that's really, really exciting. And again, the opportunity to host in this tournament is really, really cool.
One of the questions we saw pop up over on Reddit earlier when we did announce that you were coming on the show was, is Ford Parker going to get the start tomorrow on next week?
You're asking me?
Yeah, that was the question. That was one of the questions we got. So
I have no idea. I think it'd be really cool. I would love to see Ford get some time. I mean, he's played on that field. I mean, that's his home field. So I would love to see Ford get the opportunity to play there. I would love to see somebody like Christian Nava get the opportunity to play. Get some minutes on that as well. Some of the guys who maybe haven't had the opportunity. With that said, I mean, you guys have gotten to know Zach a little bit. That's a competitive dude, and he's not gonna go out there and think of this as anything other than an opportunity to win. And he can win with Christian Nave. He can win with Ford Parker. He can win with Alex Tambakis. He can win with Jerome Kiesewetter. And we are very blessed to have talented players across the board and have depth I don't think like we've had in the past. So I'm excited to see who is going to be there, but if you're asking me for insight, I have none. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, it was just one of the questions that popped up over
of course.
on Reddit. Figured we'd ask that out there. I did also in terms of Open Cup. So I've actually reached out to Las Vegas Legends. I've been trying to get an interview set up with them. They haven't gotten back to me yet. I know I was watching their broadcast the other night, and there was seemed to be a little bit of discrepancy in terms of like what league they're actually in now. Because I know they qualified as NPSL, but on their Wikipedia page is a part of ANISA now. What's kind of their, and I know that they originally came from the MASL.
Mm-hmm.
So what's been your interactions with the Legends to find out about their club in preparation for the Cup match?
Yeah, so they did qualify to NPSL, and that's what they're classified as for the Open Cup. As far as what they're doing in league, I don't know. If I'm being honest, I know that our technical staff, so Zach and Mac and Junro and Nate and everybody over there, they are the ones who obviously are doing the scouting, because I wouldn't even know where to begin on any of that. They are the technical minds on all of that kind of stuff. They don't, from what I've been able to tell, the NPSL is obviously a very different league than USL Championship, right? Their front offices are typically not as robust as the USL Championship. They are going to be hiring I guess my only interaction with them is they reached out to me to make sure that they have a reporter, a local reporter here, who is going to be covering the game for them. And so essentially writing their match recap, the stuff that I do for us. They don't have the ability kind of to send a comms guy. Obviously, they're probably operating on a budget that's a little bit tighter. And, playing in the Open Cup for a lot of these teams is tough. I mean, you got to be able to pay to get there. You guys remember in 2019, the Florida Soccer Soldiers, they beat the Charlotte Independents, and then they had to do a fundraiser to get to their next round. So that it's not easy to do this. But my interaction with them has been pretty much solely that, just making sure that there's a reporter in town that can cover the game for them, make sure they get exactly what they need. I don't think that they're going to be, to my knowledge anyway, sending anybody team-related other than the technical staff and the players. Okay.
Yeah, it's just, Open Cup provides an opportunity for lower-level clubs to get in. Obviously, we saw the success that United and St. Louis had a couple years ago. Now, yeah, it's been a long time since anyone that's not MLS has won this thing. Rest in peace, Rochester Rhinos.
Right.
But so looking at the new tournament format this year, do you think it benefits the lower league clubs a little bit more, or do you think it still favors MLS?
I think it's a more fair structure. I like the fact that you have MLS entering earlier. I think that it presents more David versus Goliath opportunities, which is, I think, what fans want, right? Fans like the upset. Fans like to see New Mexico United beat FC Dallas. Fans like to see the Florida Soccer Soldiers beat Charlotte Independence. That's fun. That's fun for neutrals. Obviously, it's not fun if your team gets beat by a league that's lower than you. But I think people really enjoy that. And so I think U.S. soccer is trying to make more of those matchups happen. Now, if you're just thinking of it tactically, does it maybe make it a little bit tougher on some of those lower league teams? Yeah, potentially. So, if I get the opportunity to, if I'm an NPSL club, for example, and I get the opportunity to play an MLS club, that's awesome. Especially if I get to play it at home, I'm going to sell that match out. It's going to be a great fundraising opportunity for me, and a way to really kind of showcase soccer in my community. But there's also probably a more likely chance that you get beat pretty handily, right? I mean, obviously there's always upsets. We've seen that. But I do like the format. I do think it makes it better for lower league teams. It allows them the opportunity to make some money, which otherwise, again, they may not have been able to do in the same way. And then they reinvest that in the club. And I think it does elevate the opportunities for those clubs to become stronger through the money that they make. And then again, if they go ahead and they get an upset, then maybe you've got two matches at home. Maybe you're playing a USL Championship club at home, and then you're playing an MLS club at home. And one of the other things that shifted with the format this year is they made it potentially more likely for one of those lower league teams to be able to host a higher league team. That wasn't always the case, and I like that. I really like when a pick your team, Houston Dynamo has to travel to FC Bravos. That's awesome. That's so cool to see this MLS team having to travel down there. And then, Houston Dynamo gets a taste of the fan base there at FC Bravos. It may not be the size of the fan base they're used to playing in front of, but those lower league teams, they've got fan bases with heart, and that's what the tournament is all about.
So I know in year one on the Curse Cast, your co-host there, RJ, was not sold on the idea of going for the
and I gave him so
in
much crap for that, Jacob.
I know. Is this year, after the run in 2019 and the dip in form in the league, do you look at it differently at all this year, or
Nope.
do you still want that quarterfinal run?
I don't want a quarterfinal run. I want a final run. I want a championship.
Okay.
I want this club to lift the Open Cup, and I want them to win the league too. And is that greedy? Absolutely. But if we're not striving for those things, if we're not striving to win every competition we're in, then we're doing ourselves and our fans a disservice, in my opinion. And I don't want to speak for Zach, but I would be shocked if he didn't feel the same way. That man does not have a non-competitive bone in his body. And so I think he'll want to beat Las Vegas Legends just as badly as he'll want to beat Phoenix Rising the following week.
Seth looked like he was scrambling.
Yeah, and I was checking my email for something real quick. Earl, do you have any questions Open Cup related? No?
No.
All right. So obviously we know the match is a week away, and we typically don't go too far ahead. But do we have scoreline predictions, or are we just gonna say United wins?
Oh, let's do it. Why not?
Okay.
I'll throw something out there. Give me a minute.
All right.
So we don't play for our next league matches until the 16th. So I think we kind of rub it in a little bit, and I think 4-1.
4-1. Okay.
I think 4-1.
Earl, what do you think?
It's modest by my means, but
I want to say, make sure this thing's on. Yeah. I want to say 3-0.
3-0. Okay. All right. We'll let David go last year. I agree with Earl. I say 3-0. We get a chance to get, see Christian get out there. Maybe see some guys that we don't normally see minutes. Maybe Ford get some time. Maybe we see Carl Sainty out there. Guys that have looked good that we've seen, in the practices. I think it'd be a great opportunity to see them get out there and get some time.
And you guys know me well enough to know I'm not going to do a score prediction. But what I am hoping for is exactly what you're saying, Seth. I want to see some of the guys who maybe haven't had an opportunity yet, not extended minutes. Guys like Jerome Kiesvetter, guys like Carl Sainty, guys like Ford Parker, Guys like Christian Nava. I want to see those guys get out there and show the world, or at least the Albuquerque greater metro area and in Las Vegas, that they deserve to be out there too. And I want them to make it hard on the guys who have been getting wins, right? I want Christian Nava to go out there and make it hard on Nico Brett. I want that. I want Ford Parker to make it hard on Alex Tambakis. And that's what I'm really excited about. In addition to, like I said, I just love this tournament. I have since before United existed. Ever since we've been able to play in it. Obviously, this is the second time. It's different. It has like that almost that Christmassy feel to it. There's a magic to it. And I love the Open Cup, and I want us to be in it for as long as possible.
Yeah, I think all of us, we've talked about it, over the past couple of years, and talked about the Open Cup, and was it worth it going that deep? Did we put too much emphasis on it? But I know that I said in 2019 on a different show that I felt like it was great for the club because it's exposure. I mean, you go up and you beat 2 MLS clubs. You go up to Minnesota United and you play up there. You open the match with a goal, and then obviously didn't turn out the way we wanted it. But it's a lot of exposure for the club, and like you could see the club getting mentioned, like ESPN and some other places that we wouldn't normally see the USL being talked about. And so I think it's great. I think it's great to see. You talked about lower league clubs having more possibilities of hosting this time around, which I think is fantastic. I think that's something that should have happened a long time ago. But yeah, I look forward to it every year, and I watched matches over the weekend, and there was a lot of fun soccer in these lower league matches. Just looking forward to what comes next.
And think about it. Let's just say everything goes great, right? Let's say United makes another run in the cup. They go to the quarterfinal, whatever it may be. You do it once and everybody's excited and everybody gets into it. You do it twice and all of a sudden people are like, what is up with New Mexico in the Open Cup? And it becomes a thing. And then nobody wants to play you. And nobody wants to play in the Open Cup next year. And like that, I would love for it to become a New Mexico United thing that we just wreak havoc in the Open Cup. That would be so much fun. Bring on the chaos that causes. I would love that.
Yeah, that absolutely would be great. Next Tuesday night, the match is at 7:30. 7:30 over at UNM. If you don't have your tickets, you can get them online now. I don't know. Do you know actual seated capacity for that match, or?
I don't know the exact seated capacity. We've got it split up into 4 different sections. So you've obviously got your center pitch. Then you've got kind of, further out along the sideline. And then we've got a supporter section behind the north goal, as well as some bleachers behind the south goal, all at different prices. And yeah, you can get the tickets. If you go to the link, just where you get your normal New Mexico United tickets, it'll take you to where the Lobos are selling those tickets.
Yeah, so there you go. I think tickets range from $15 to $30. I was looking at that earlier. So go out and get your tickets if you haven't already. We'll be out there. At least, I know I will for sure. Jacob, you going to be there?
I will be there.
All right, there we go. We'll have
spend a Tuesday night. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Tuesday night, and I live 2.5 hours away, but I will be there.
If you need, I got a couch you can crash on, Jacob.
Yeah, I got to work in the morning, so I'll be all right. It wouldn't be the first time. I made it to some Wednesday matches last year too, so.
We got one tomorrow.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there tomorrow, and we'll get to that here in just a few minutes. You did mention a couple of names a few minutes ago, David. That did get brought up over on Reddit. Sure. Questions about early on. Zach Prince seems to be rotate a little less than Troy did. I think that's pretty obvious through 3 matches. Troy was notorious for using all 5 subs in every single match. And so we've kind of talked to Zach about it a little bit. And the question is this mainly stylistic or due to a couple of injuries? Will we see the likes of Radi Ovuka and Jerome Kiesewetter get the nod to start soon?
Yeah, I would love to see those guys get some time. As far as whether that's stylistic or tactical or, due to injury, I don't know the answer to that. I think obviously Radi came in late. That's a big thing to point out. And I think those of you, Seth, I know you like me are a transplant here. It takes some getting used to be at elevation like this. And, I know these guys are pro athletes and I am certainly not that. But it takes some time, and these guys are training every day. And so I would imagine that these guys will certainly get their opportunities. But again, I think particularly with Ratty is the one that comes to mind for me. I mean, he came in super late. He came in the week of the first game. I mean, it was the week of the last preseason game. We saw him warming up there, but he had literally gotten in 24 hours, less than 24 hours before that match kicked off. So I think patience, young Padawan, but I think that is going to be. I'm excited to see those guys when they do get their opportunities.
Yeah, Rad is a guy that, obviously super hyped up. Jerome, looking for a bit of a rebound season. But I mean, there's just so much talent top to bottom on this roster that, I know we're all anxious to see these guys get in. It's like, well, why aren't they in there? Why isn't so-and-so in there? And I know it's hard, especially dealing with the injuries we've had so far. And then, looking at the guys that are the names that we recognize.
Yeah.
Waiting for them to get their opportunities.
Well, and then the other thing, and you and I talked about this the other day, Seth and Jacob, the other day at that preseason match. So it's like a month ago now. But we talked about, we have no idea what the level of the Congolese League is compared to the USL Championship. I have no clue. I don't know. Ratty was, for all intents and purposes, probably the best left back in that league. How does it compare to the USL Championship? We don't know yet. And, when Ratty is ready to go, when he's ready to go, hopefully we'll get a little bit of a taste of maybe that comparison. We can see what he's able to do in the USL Championship and see how that compares to the Congolese League. I'm excited to see, obviously, just to see him play, but also to make that comparison because it's a league where I'm not aware of any other players in the USL Championship that have come from that league. I don't know of any. It's not a league that really has been explored by USL Championship teams, and you can credit Itamar Kainan for finding Ratty, for bringing him in. And Itamar, for those who don't know, is our director of player personnel. We brought him in just towards the end of last season, and his job, among other things, is to find players for New Mexico United, and sometimes in places where a lot of teams aren't looking. He was an agent before. He's Kalen Ryden's agent, Christian Nava's agent, a few other of our players actually. Their agents as well, but he found Ratty in the Congolese League, and I'm excited to see what he can do. But I don't know if anybody other than Itamar really has an idea, other than those who have seen him in training.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him either. He was the best kept secret of the off season, and we were able to look at
the best kept secret until he wasn't, right?
Yeah. we were able to look him up a little earlier than some of the other players and see some highlights of stuff and watch him in some World Cup qualifying actually, and he looks to be the real deal. And like you said, I just can't wait to see how he stacks up against USL competition. And from what I've seen, I have higher hopes than I should probably, but I think he's going to come in and at right now I kind of count him as an injury. To that back line as well, because we're just so shorthanded back there. I would love for him to feel, or Zach to feel comfortable enough to play him maybe even Wednesday. I don't know if that's going to happen, but with those injuries that we've had stack up back there, we could use another body out there that can give us some time at least.
Yeah. And I think the worst thing that you can do, and this is often used to justify kind of loan spells. We've seen this in the Premier League, and I'm going to reference Arsenal here, Jacob, so you might want to, turn away or something like that. But a guy like William Saliba, he took his headphones off. So William Saliba is this center back that Arsenal bought from Marseille, excuse me, in Ligue 1 in France. And he's a really great center back there. He's only a kid. He's like 19, I think. And they bought him for a decent fee, and they brought him in, and they were going back and forth on whether or not they should play him. And Mikel Arteta, the manager at Arsenal, ultimately decided to lend him out. And when asked why, he's like, this really talented player, why did you lend this guy out? He's like, the worst thing that I could possibly do for a young player's development is to immediately just throw him into the fire. And in that situation, it could just erode his confidence. I mean, he may never recover if things don't go well. So they loan him out. He's doing an excellent job on loan, and they're going to bring him back. I kind of see this situation, it's almost like a mini loan for Ratty, right? So Ratty's coming into this new league, and if we were to just throw him into, the fire, against some of these clubs, I mean, it might not have gone well right off the bat. So he's gotten the opportunity to get in shape, to start to understand this league, to start to understand how it operates, how teams operate within the league. I really think that learning experience will be crucial for his development, and getting to understand the league and being ready to go when Zach's ready to put him in there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I just not being in the locker room and around him. Whenever he's ready, I'm all for him to get some minutes, and I would hope that it would be sooner rather than later with those injuries. But if not, then Seymour, Swahi, and Tete have looked fantastic out there.
I didn't agree with the club. I'm not supposed to ever say this, but I didn't agree with the club in the man of the match on this past Saturday. I thought Harry and Brucey were both great. It was Rosh for me. Yeah. Rosh was played out of his shoes. Oh my gosh. Like the clearances, the blocks, just the kind of calmness to turn and distribute under pressure. I thought it was maybe the best Rashid's ever played for us. And he's had some really great matches.
Yeah, I know. I had Rosh in my post match as my man match. Like you said, you look at the stats, you can just watch him play out there on Saturday, and he had a tremendous match against arguably one. You could say maybe not 100% certainty, but one of the best clubs in the USL. Obviously, the defending champs came in. Yep. We end up pulling out a 1-1 draw against them. We played well for, I'd say, 99% of that match, and Rosh was definitely one of the guys that stood out on Saturday.
Yeah, I thought, again, for me, the biggest thing was the calmness under pressure, right? Especially as you mentioned, we have some injuries along that back line. So we are relying on these guys to be strong, to go the full 90, and to just kind of be mentally fit enough to not freak out, when, especially, late in that match, when you're getting kind of bombarded for the last 10 minutes, these guys are calm under pressure. They distribute. I thought Will had a great match defensively. I thought that Rashid, again, in my opinion, was just the man of the match, mostly for his calmness under pressure. I thought he was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I was like, we don't want to take anything away from the performances of Harry and Brucey and the other guys. They played fantastic. Harry had a great goal, as we all know.
And Brucey with his second assist on the season, Harry with his second goal. I mean, they look great. That's no intended slight for Harry or Brucey or anybody else. I just thought Rashid played really, really well.
I feel like a lot of the time, man of the match is an offensive award, which is a shame when you have performances like Rowdy's or not Rowdy's, sorry, Rashid's or Austin a couple times last year, especially. You look at their performances and you go, wow, it for a soccer novice like myself, who's really only been into soccer since United became a thing, for their performances to stand out for me, they played well, and that it was an impressive performance. So I feel like unless it's a shutout and your defender scores, it's hard for a man of the match to be a defender.
Yeah, man of the match and MVP awards are made for goal scorers and goalkeepers. Yeah. And it's a shame. You're 100% right. I agree with you, Jacob. I think we've had some incredible defensive performances in the history of our club. Rashid has made some of them. Kalen Ryden has made some of them. Austin Yearwood has made some of them. Ethan Sampson. I remember a few really great performances in year one from him.
Throwback.
Yeah, I hope Ethan's doing well. But I agree with you 100%. I always want to give a little bit more love to those defensive guys because I don't think they get enough of it. And it's funny, there's on the Academy. So the Academy had their opener against El Paso on the week that the first team played El Paso weekend. And I went to that match, did the live tweeting for that. It was a lot of fun. And they won pretty handily. And so after the match, we got a couple of our club photographers. Isaiah Watts, I think guys know him. We interviewed a few of the players, and we interviewed two of the goal scorers. And Paulo Vela, who's the center back and the captain for the Academy team, he said, "What, the defenders get no love?" So he's got a point. He's got a point there.
Yeah. Going back to Saturday, I just mentioned Orange County, the defending champions. They came in, and they're not the same club they were last year, obviously. They are trying to replace 20 goals from Ronaldo Damas leaving, from Bees obviously coming back to us. Looking at that match, how would you grade the club as a whole compared to how Orange County is playing right now?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair question. I think there's a couple really important things to remember going into those matches. And you mentioned kind of like the requirement to replace goals in that, right? So Ugo Okoli had scored twice in the match prior to get them essentially the draw that they needed. That both of those goals were late, and Okoli's not a starter for them, so they're getting goals from off the bench in order to kind of get by. So they aren't, as you said, the club that they needed. Ronaldo Damas just transferred to Sweden 2 weeks, a week prior to that, and then who was it that had just gotten called up to the men's national team? It was Kobe Henry. That was it. Kobe Henry just got called up to the U20 men's national team. So, they're missing a lot of their top players. With that said, they are the reigning champs. They are a very talented team. They've got in my opinion, one of the better coaches in the USL Championship. And so it took a lot, in my opinion, it takes a lot in order to get a point out of that, even at home. So I was impressed. Obviously, letting up a goal in stoppage is never a good thing, never a fun thing. And it's something that we've seen a couple times happen to this club, late goals or goals right after we scored. So that's kind of a mental toughness thing. And you, Seth, you were there, I think, in the post-match press conference where Zach Prince said, what we learned tonight is we have to go up 2-0. I mean, there's no excuse, right? We can't sit back and hope to grind it out 1-0. We need to be more aggressive. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, from him on that. But I think it's something that fans have said for a long time, right? We need to continue to kind of put our foot on the gas. We need to get to that 2-0 because if you score a second in the 75th, 80th, whatever minute it is, it's a heck of a lot harder to come back. I mean, it's basic math, but it's also momentum. And it's absolutely crucial.
Yeah, I blame myself a little bit there. I jumped the gun after the second match and got really excited because we'd done two things that we had a hard time doing in the previous last couple of years, at least, which was holding on to a late lead, specifically against El Paso, and going for it, even though we were up. Like me and Earl were on the outfield touchline in the first match against Vegas, and 90th minute, we're still high with that high press, and Nico was still bumming, and we were like, "Whoa, okay, this is new," and I got a little excited. And then I wrote an article about how it felt different. And
I read that article, yeah.
And then we do the exact same thing that I had just said we hadn't done yet. And so I'll take a little bit of a curse there, and hopefully that it was only a one match thing, and we can move on from it. But
so I read that article, and I agreed with you on some of it, and I disagreed with part of it, though. So, yes, we gave up that goal late, and I see Aaron Reeder in the chat here had a little PTSD when they scored in stoppage. I totally hear that. I totally get where you're coming from, 100%. It was different, though. We were pressing.
It was.
And in years past, we haven't always pressed high when we have that goal lead. We were pressing. We just got caught. We got caught twice. And at the end of that game, I mean, right before we let up that game tying goal, Alex Tambakis made a terrific save. That's what led to the corner kick, right? Mm-hmm. So we're getting pressured there. It's in that situation, coming off of a set piece, that's not necessarily because you're sitting back. That's because your goalkeeper made an incredible save. It went out for a corner. You can't press high on a set piece, right? It's just if they got a corner, you got to be there to defend it. So I wouldn't say that it's the same, but I absolutely hear where you're coming from as far as like, oh man, here we go again.
Well,
it's not the same though.
I don't think it was the same necessarily. I just felt like karma was saying, hey, you need to slow your roll.
Yeah.
Just because it's two matches doesn't mean I can't pull some strings and make you feel bad again. And that's exactly what happened. But I thought we played a fantastic match, and it was a pretty even match if you look at it in a lot of ways, and a draw is probably a fair result there. It just coming in stoppage time, like a couple of goals from last year. Yeah, it kind of stings a little bit, and you got to shake it off. And like Zach said, you got to attack a little more and get that second goal. And and then that goal in stoppage time doesn't matter as much, anyways.
It's 100% right. And the other thing to remember is we are very much, as a club, a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
9 new players, a new head coach, an entirely new technical staff. Zach's the only one that's still there, and he moved positions. So to get off to a good start as we have is great, but I think it's important to realize that there are going to be roadblocks. There are going to be issues. We're not going unbeaten for the whole season. I would love it. That'd be great. But I think we can be excited. We can be thrilled at how they've played so far. And overall, it's been very good. But we haven't won anything yet. We haven't earned anything yet. And Zach will be the first to tell you we got a long way to go before we are where we want to be.
Yeah, going back over to Reddit, there's another question here. Again, it's very early on. We've got 3 matches under our belts. Question here: are we finding out just how much we missed Harry Swartz and Sam Hamilton from last season?
I love that question. Yeah, I mean, not just because they were injured, which stunk, obviously, but I love. I've been hoping for this for so long. Sam Hamilton finally getting to play in his position. I mean, he was great on the back line. That man is a defensive midfielder, and he is damn good at it. And so the opportunity for him to play in that role, for us to have the depth that despite the injuries that we've had on the back line, that he can still play in that role. We are a much better team when Sam plays in that position, in my opinion. Again, he does a great job when he needs to play on the back line, but when he can play as a defensive midfielder, we are just better for it. And when you can pair him alongside a Justin Portillo, that's fun. That is really fun because Sam will intercept balls and distribute well, and then he finds Justin, who has, in my opinion, the best vision in the USL Championship. He has the ability to hit players on a dime, to find exactly where they are, to lead them well. He is second in the league in key passes and chances created right now. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And Harry, the tenacity that he has, I mean, you guys have seen his goal celebrations. He's an animal when he's on the pitch. And when you talk to him off the pitch, he is the calmest, most just nice guy. And then, he turns into just a different person on the pitch. It was funny the other day, Lucas Cash sent myself and Harry a group text. And we were talking about our podcast. We're going to get that rolling sometime here in the next few weeks.
Humble brag.
Humble brag.
Humble brag.
He said he sent the video of Harry kind of celebrating like a madman. And he said, "This is the kind of tenacity that I want when Harry comes on the podcast." And Harry said, "I don't know who that guy is, but he's only in between those lines." That man gives everything he has for the club. And he is the nicest human being. And I love watching him. And I don't think he plays in the way he plays. I don't think he's trying to score goals. The fact that he's got 2 through 3 games is awesome. But I think it's kind of like a cherry on top. He's playing to make tackles and find teammates. And it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I brought up that question specifically because I wanted to get Earl's input on this as well. We all know that Earl has not been fond of our midfield the past couple seasons, particularly with the play of a former player, Juan Pablo Guzman. So Earl, I mean, what do you feel about this? Do you feel like the return of Sam Hamilton and Harry Swartz has drastically improved our midfield play?
Absolutely. So obviously everyone here knows I was not the hugest fan or any kind of fan of what was going on in midfield the past 3 seasons. So to be able to see us actually obviously still press in the 90th minute, but also not give up 2 or 3 goals per game, that speaks just volumes for what the midfield was or is, not was.
Yeah, this has been a podcast that I've talked to Juan Pablo Guzman several times. Super nice guy. He was infuriating to watch on the pitch sometimes, and I've had conversations with soccer purists, and they explain to me what he does, and I can see some of that. But he also, especially last year, just made a lot of boneheaded mistakes, I thought, and really kind of killed momentum a lot of times. So to see the improvement that we've had there, and the way it's kind of led our attack to be seemingly a little more potent, has been a breath of fresh air this year.
I think that Juan was a good player that was asked to do a lot. He really, I mean, he was relied upon to be that pivot in the midfield. You know, he's the one who he's got to make tackles, but very quickly needs to find outlets. He's the one who needs to take the ball from the right side, get past an attacker, and move over to the left side. He was asked to do a ton. And I did like the way he moved the ball. I know, Earl, we don't have to agree. That's okay. But I did like what Juan did for the club. And I think, yeah, of course he made mistakes. Every player makes mistakes. But I think Juan was asked to do a lot. But to focus on the positive, and what Aaron Reeder said there in chat, Portillo has been, in my opinion, a revelation for this club. I know he's somebody that a lot of fans and I think a lot of people in the club have watched for a long time and thought, man, he would be great here. And I think what we're doing really fits his skill set. We're giving him the space to operate and find open passes, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun. I love what Justin Portillo has been able to do for this club through only 3 matches.
Yeah, I think that and we actually even had a post. I had a post about him on the Somos Moss page about how good he's been so far for us. And do you think that you've seen these players a little bit more, especially a player like Carl Sainty? Does he feel more of Portillo's role or Hamilton's role in that midfield?
I don't think either, actually. I think he plays a little further forward. I think kind of if we're talking about roles, I think it's more similar to a Chris Wehan. In that I think he's going to hang around the top of the box, maybe some late runs in. We saw in preseason, he's got a quick foot. The goal he scored in preseason almost felt a little bit out of nowhere and accurate and powerful. And again, he's just a kid and you would never know it when you watch him play. Like if you just had like polygons, right? You couldn't see faces. You didn't know who these players were. You would not think that he's just a kid in the way that he plays, in his confidence. I'm excited to see him get some time. He played for Haiti the other night, made his senior team debut for Haiti, which is really, really awesome. And we're super proud of that. I'm excited to see what he's going to be. And whether that's this year, whether that's next year, whether that's in the next match, I don't know, obviously. But I think he's being nurtured. And given the opportunity to really grow. And I think the sky's the limit for that kid.
Yeah, we talked about him, me, you, and Seth talked about him at that preseason match afterwards, and we're all really high on him. And I know you and other members of the club are pretty high on him, and I can't wait to watch him. And there's the depth on this team is just kind of ridiculous when you look at the potential of some of these players. Like with Ratty and Sainty, we don't really know exactly what they're going to be at this USL championship level, but the idea of them is really high in a lot of people's mind, including myself. And then you throw that along proven players like Sheed and Yearwood when he comes back, and Ryden and Suggs, and the list goes on and on. Swahi and what he's done to really solidify that back line through all these injuries as well. I mean, there's just so much potential on this club, and I can't wait to see what it does the rest of the year, but specifically against Oakland, and see if we get a little bit of club rotation there or how that plays out.
Well, and I think it's been really cool. Guys like Nico Brett and Justin Portillo come to mind when you think of, like, those are guys who coming into the season, we expected them to really perform, right? We're pretty confident we were getting proven commodities. Obviously, Nico Brett's 6th all-time in USL Championship scoring. Justin Portillo has been a fantastic distributor at the USL Championship and MLS levels. We felt really confident about what we were getting there. Maybe somebody who, I wouldn't say he was a question mark, but I think somebody who, me personally, I wasn't aware of his skill set or didn't necessarily know what to expect with him, but he's been a pleasant surprise. Has been Tabarataka Preston. I mean, he's been fantastic. You could make the argument he may be our best player so far this season. I mean, he's obviously scored 1 goal, probably could have had 3 additional goals. He gets himself in a dangerous position. He's wicked fast. And he finds space between lines. The way that he links up with Nico is so much fun to watch. They have this play. I don't know if you guys have noticed it. I've noticed it 4 times. They've done it 4 times already, and it's obviously something they work on in training. where Portillo gets the ball. Preston is running off of the right side, and Nico is kind of directly in front of Portillo. Portillo plays a straight ball right to Nico. Nico outside a foot flicks it on, and Preston's already running on it before a defender notices. It's happened 4 times. Preston scored off of it once, and he almost scored off of it a couple other times. He's so fast that by the time opponents notice this, he's gone. It's so much fun to watch, and I've been really, really excited and really, really just, I don't know, pleasantly surprised, I guess, even though maybe I shouldn't have been, by the really positive play that Preston's had.
Yeah, and I there's just so much going on that I forgot to mention him, but you're right. You're absolutely right. He has been a revelation up top. Him and Nico both, just kind of completely opposite of what we have had up there in the last year or so, with the speed that they have and the way that they just seem to be working off each other. The one play, the same play that you're talking about, the one against Lights where Ataka just put it just wide, was, I believe, the first time we had seen that play, and it definitely was something that seemed like they had been working on. In fact, me and Earl had talked to Itamar at halftime, I believe, and he mentioned that play and mentioned that they were trying to exploit some backline, some things that they saw in the backline with Vegas with it, and then it hasn't gone away because it's so effective, because Ataka is so fast, and it just works so well when teams aren't expecting it. So I didn't mean to leave him off, and I appreciate you. You're very good at that, by the way. I've noticed in the press conferences and other situations where if you feel like somebody's getting overlooked, you'll be like, "Hey, what about this guy that maybe these dumb reporters aren't asking about?" but I know he's playing well. Can you talk about that real quick? And I appreciate when you do that.
Oh, thank you. That's kind of you to say. It's easy to do when you have this level of talent, right? We're really fortunate to have this, and again, it's really, really fun to watch. And every time you talk about somebody, you're leaving somebody else out. Sure. And we could talk about all the goal scoring and how awesome that is. And then we haven't talked about Alex Tambakis for more than 10 seconds. Right. And he's been phenomenal. So there's only so much time in the day. There are many more episodes, and there'll be plenty of opportunities to talk about all these guys, but it's been fun to watch. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Speaking of, there's only so much time in the day. Let's move right on. We do have a match tomorrow night. Oakland Roots coming to town, final home league match for quite a while. Looking at the way the two seasons have gone, obviously the Oakland season has not started the way that they wanted to. United is unbeaten through 3 matches. I look at this and I think this is another great opportunity for us to see what Zach Prince's style or what his game plan is going to be. We spent time talking to him after the first couple of matches where United kind of sat back a little bit, gave up possession, and then we saw us control possession more against Orange County. Now Oakland comes in, their team that likes to hold possession, they like to get forward, and they lost last week on a 90th minute goal against Monterey Bay. Looking at them, David, what are your thoughts heading into this match? As far as what do you think Oakland's going to want to do against us?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, if we wouldn't, but if we would come into this match underestimating them, we'd be in trouble. Yes, they haven't claimed a point in their first 3 matches. Yes, they've given up a late goal similar to the one that we gave up against Monterey Bay. They are 3rd in the league in passing accuracy and passes overall. They do like to hold the ball. It's funny, they're only at a 52% possession rate on the season, but that factors in the fact that Monterey outpossessed them 2-1. So prior to that, I mean, they were dominant in possession. Again, they've only played 3 matches. They pass the ball really well. They just haven't had that final touch yet. And so if they can get that final touch, if they're able to just put the ball on frame, they're an incredibly dangerous team. They haven't been able to score goals at the clip that they'd like to, but they possess the ball really well. They build up play really well, and they frustrate teams really well. So if they nick a goal early, that could spell trouble. So I think it'll be crucial for United to try and keep some possession early. make them uncomfortable, don't allow them to establish their kind of possession-based game plan. And I think that'll be really crucial in order for United to get a win on tomorrow night. Wow, we're 24 hours out, less than.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Oakland's a team. They've got a lot of talent. They've got a guy that I've kind of been watching their first couple of matches. Magnus Carlsen, obviously on loan from Venezia, from Serie A. Obviously a guy that's super talented. If you look back through his history, he was scouted by Ajax. He's played for some pretty good clubs, even on loan. So and he scored twice last week against Monterey Bay. So, and of course, one was a pen. But he's a guy, and he's got the ability to score. It's just hard to see what isn't quite clicking for them just yet. But I agree with you. I think that if you underestimate them, they're going to come in and they could steal the 3 points.
And I've always been a huge fan of Memo Diaz too. He's not a goal scorer by any means, but we talk about making sure those defensive guys get some love. He's kind of in that Sam Hamilton role where he can play on the back line. He can play as a defensive midfielder. I've always liked him. I've always rated him. And he's a guy who distributes really well as well. I think it'll be crucial for a guy like Chris Wehan to be annoying him, pestering him, not allowing him to settle in order for us to do that as well. And as you mentioned, Carlsen, he's a guy who I think he's their most dangerous player right now. They don't have a ton of goals necessarily in them. As I mentioned, they like to possess the ball and get up, and it's essentially capitalize on the opportunities, the few ones that they create. But I think they're going to build from the back and then try and outlet to Carlsen. Those are, in my opinion, Diaz and Carlsen are their two best players. And so that's right up the middle. Those are two guys right up the spine. It'll be crucial for us defensively to focus on the middle. I don't think we're going to see a ton of wide play from Oakland in this match. So I think it'll be really important to just focus on defensive, kind of the defensive spine of the pitch.
Earl, what have you seen from United so far that you think is going to work well in this match tomorrow night?
I think just their attack. I mean, just the fact that we keep pressing. If we don't see the back passes like we saw Saturday night, which I'm not a huge fan of back passes and playing out the backfield. So if we don't see that and we see a continuous attack like we did week 1 and into week 2, I think that'll help us out. Just help us out a whole bunch. Just avoiding the slowing down of play and keeping Oakland on their feet and keeping them on their heels and constantly backpedaling, trying to figure out what's going on, is what I think would be the best route to any kind of success tomorrow night.
Earl, I think you hit on a really good point there. I think Oakland really does want to slow the game down. That's how they play. Again, possession soccer, lots of passes, lots of possession in their own zone, and then to kind of spring forward when they see the opportunity there. So I agree with you. I think the opportunities for United to play fast, not necessarily countering, but again, we're going to be a faster team than they are just physically tomorrow. So if we see the game slow down, that's probably not in United's favor. So yeah, I think that's a great point, Earl.
Earl, looking at the system that Zach has run so far this year, we've seen basically just 3 at the back every single match. Obviously, with the injuries, we've seen some guys rotate in and out. Do you feel like this 3 at the back is something that we're going to continue to see, or do you think Zach kind of plays around with it a little bit?
You asked me that, you cut out.
Yeah, that was for you.
Yeah, I think we continue to see the back 3. It hasn't done us harm yet. I mean, obviously, when teams start scoring 3 or 4 goals on us, we might look at something different. But the fact that teams have only scored a total of 2 goals on us, with only 3 back, and a substituted 3 back at that because we're beat up back there. I think we stay at the back 3 because we have the depth for that. So.
Well, the other thing you got to remember with that is when we play a back 3, it allows us to play the wings in the way we want to, right? It allows you to have Harry Swartz and Daniel Bruce on either side. Or if Josh Suggs is healthy, it allows you to have Suggsy and one of those guys on the other side. It allows us to attack in the way we want to. And I mentioned Oakland likes to be kind of more narrow. We like to play wide. We like to bomb down the wings. We like Josh Suggs going down the left wing and firing it across. We like Harry Swartz doing the same on the right, or Daniel Bruce, or vice versa. So I think playing with that back three defensively allows us to have the shape where we can almost Mighty Ducks flying V, go up the wings there and then bomb crosses in.
Speaking of Josh Suggs, there was another thread over on the subreddit. Obviously, Nico and Preston came out of the match Saturday night. Normally, you send out some match notes the day prior. Can you give us any sort of update on the injury situation for the guys that are out, and was there any concern over Nico and Preston from Saturday?
I'm looking at the match notes right now. I thought I sent them to you. Let me.
Okay.
I'm going to email them to you as I answer this question. But as far as injury, the only guys listed on the injury report this week are Yerzy and Armando. So whatever that means for coach, I assume that means that players are available for selection. So that would be, who did we not have last week? We didn't have Kalen. We didn't have Suggsy, obviously Armando and Yerzy. So I would imagine that that Kalen and Suggsy would be available for selection tomorrow, which would be great. Would absolutely love to see that. And just from talking to Yerzy, his injury and what Zach has told us in the press conference does not seem to be long term. He's working his way back and should be back here pretty soon from what Zach's been able to describe to us. So hopefully it'll just be Armando here in a little bit, and hopefully his rehab's going well. From everything I've seen him out of training a few times, he's jogging, which is great considering it wasn't that long ago that he completely blew out his ACL. I know I've talked to him. He is itching to get back on the field. He misses it so much. And that's what you want, right? You want the guys to want to be out there. But you also don't want him to rush it back. So we'd love to see those guys healthy again here pretty soon.
Yeah, you've mentioned, and Zach has done it too, mentioned that, Mondo's there during training. He's doing mental reps on the side. He's still being active with what he can do within the confines of his rehab, and making sure that, the knee is strong enough to come back. We saw Dev out at the lab Saturday night. Do you have any updates on Dev?
I loved seeing him out there. It was the first time I'd seen him at a match this season. I don't know if he'd been at other ones and I just hadn't seen him. And then I saw him, we had the press conference on Thursday, and he was out at training. He's not physically training himself. He's not allowed to, but he was out there with the club, and that felt really great to see. I love to see him out there. I don't know what that means for him. As far as I know, I don't think anything has changed with regard to him coming back, not coming back, anything like that. As far as I know, he's still got to figure out some things medically. But it just felt right to see him out there at the training ground, and again, the first time I've seen him out there since last season, when obviously he went out with the heart clots. But it just feels right to see Devin Sandoval with the shield on him and out there with his teammates.
Is he under contract for this year or
I don't believe he's currently under contract. From everything I've been able to gather from the technical staff, is they're waiting just to see what happens. And we've talked about this at length. And I think the biggest thing, and I don't think there's anybody who would disagree with this, we just need to make sure he's healthy for him first, because there's so many more things that are more important than him playing soccer, like him being a husband and dad. And so would I love to see Devin Sandoval banging in goals of the lab? I would pay good money to see that. But it's worth so much more just to make sure he's a healthy human being and can live a healthy life.
Amen.
I can't remember if it was last year or this year. This is a little bit off of topic from where we're at, but Brucey picked up one of his coaching licenses. Is he doing anything with that, or do you know if he's going to be doing anything in the near future?
Yeah. So Brucey is one of two apprentice coaches for the academy. So that'd be him and Mike Azira. Cody Mizell was one as well before he left off to New York. And so, Brucey, I believe, I may be wrong in this, I believe he got his C license, which is obviously the fourth highest, not including pro. And so he's talked about this in the past publicly, where he could see once, long time down the road, he's only 26. Once he is done playing soccer, I think he'd be a brilliant mind for coaching it as well. I mean, it's pretty cool to see the guys that have come from United and are working their way into coaching trees. Guys like obviously David Estrada is the big one that comes to mind. But Mike Azira, Daniel Bruce, I think Devin Sandoval could make a really great coach. He's helping out with the academy a lot right now as well. That's really cool to see, because I think that's a compliment to the coaches that we've had here in Troy Lestain and Zach Prince, obviously the rest of the coaching staff as well, that players see that and think, man, this is an important role. This is something that's helped me. This is a way that I could continue my life and my career post playing. I would love to, I don't know, 10 years from now, Devin Sandoval, Daniel Bruce, David Estrada are your coaching staff for New Mexico United. How cool would that be? That would be amazing. I think Daniel Bruce has a future in coaching when he decides he wants to hang him up, which I think he could have another, 10 years, 15 years if he wanted to.
Random Brucey story. It's definitely going to be a cool story, bro moment. But I wasn't on the field or in the press box for the game. My wife actually went, and we sat in the stands and sat with some friends and had a guy at halftime when I was up on the top of the steps fist bump me. Didn't know who he was. And then right after the game ended, I stand up, guy taps me on the shoulder, and he goes, "Hey, can I get a picture?" And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "You're Daniel Bruce's brother, right?" I was like, No, I'm not actually. Well, he's like, can you pretend to be Daniel Bruce's brother? I was like, sure, man, whatever. He takes the picture, and I think what it was is the headband and the hair, because I had the headband in, and but I'm like a foot taller than Bruce, like legit a foot taller than Bruce, and so he was definitely a little inebriated, but it made me laugh, and I was like, okay, maybe I can be Daniel Bruce's brother for the day. That'd be fun.
You're in good company, man. Daniel Bruce is not only an incredible soccer player, but a great human. Your childhood must have been really great.
Right. Right there,
yeah, I noticed that.
Autograph.
I love the poster you've got back there behind you as well. The poster series has been so much fun. I love that.
I love the idea.
Let's not talk about it.
I know. I'm sorry, Earl. I'm sorry. I didn't get this one for him.
I'll get you one, Earl.
Aha! There we go. The problem that I have with it is that I get it, and then I'm like, okay, now I have to rearrange my whole wall behind me to display them, and so I did this one today.
You've got what, 15 more? So
yeah, exactly. So it'll just be posters at one point at the end of the year, but
Josh Lane is doing that with his entire office at work. He's just going to do posters along the entire wall of the office, and I got to figure out what I'm going to do with them. I may frame them. I don't know, but again, how do you display 17 posters? Wow. And those are not small; those are big posters.
No, they aren't. And then I have a house with 3 kids under the age of 5, or 5 is my oldest, so I don't have a lot of room where I'm worried that they won't break glass. So, because I would like to get
your wife to have new wallpaper in the bedroom.
Yeah. Well, I would like to frame them, like David said. I think that would be a cool way to display them, and probably the best way to display them so they don't get messed up or anything. But I'm like, okay, well, the frame adds another 2 inches to an already giant poster.
Well, I think 5 years from now, people are going to look back at those things and be like, man, like I really wish I got those. Those are so cool. And I don't know if we've even talked about it. If we're planning on continuing that series beyond this season? So then, 5 years from now, do we have like 70 posters? Like, I don't know what that looks like.
I would need one house specifically for United memorabilia with posters and scarves and flags and jerseys and
I think we're getting there as it is already with all the gear that we've got. It's a lot.
Yeah,
it is a lot.
This is only maybe half of what I have.
Yeah,
but I don't have a whole room. I just have this tiny little corner of my bedroom that I can do it in. So until we get a bigger place, which hopefully is soon, I'm limited to what I can put up. But it's fun. We were all there year one, and we all collected things starting in year one, aside from maybe Seth, because he was professional. Okay, I appreciate that, Aaron. So me and Aaron are going to buy a house and just fill it up with United gear and get a big giant projector to watch all the away games on. That's what we'll do. Sound good, Aaron?
There you go. That sounds like a plan. And that actually brings up a question I'm going to ask here in a little bit. But to close out our preview of tomorrow night's match against Oakland Roots, knowing the injury report, looking at who we have available, Earl, what do you think our lineup's going to look like tomorrow night?
I hate when you ask this question because God only knows. So we'll have definitely 11 people on the pitch.
Yes.
We'll have
At least to
least
start.
one goalkeeper. Yeah, we'll have at least one goalkeeper. Other than that, I don't know.
Can you play with two goalkeepers?
I mean, I guess you could throw someone out there. Like you don't have to.
I don't think they can use their hands, but they could.
No.
They could stand by the goal, I guess.
Well, you can put any of your defenders in goal. You know, like in a red card situation. Like so,
You can put 11. You can put 11 players on the goal line if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't, but you could.
Yeah, I don't know. Aaron asks, "Do you shake up the back three?" I don't know who we can shake up the back three with there at the moment. I mean, if Ryden's back, then Ryden is my center back, point blank. Seymour has done a fantastic job filling in there, but Ryden was signed to this team to bring championship pedigree and a just absolute stud back there, and he has been for 3 seasons for us now, multiple seasons in this league, and he doesn't lose his spot because of injury, and so I would make that move, and then after that,
Here's probably the most controversial take of the entire night.
Oh God, oh God.
Yeah, I know the hot takes are back.
Somebody mute him real quick.
I want to, but I don't want to. I want to know what it is.
I figure out how to unmute myself too. So
I'll hover right over the mute. So if it gets too crazy, we can shut it down real quick.
So I would actually like to see the pass back three that we just saw on what was it, Saturday? I slept since then. Just to give the injured ones. So obviously, like Kalen, who has been injured a couple weeks now, and Joshi, give him some more.
I don't hate this take. I'm okay with it.
And give them some more time to heal up and actually get fully uninjured for the Open Cup.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that, frankly, the back three that played on Saturday have earned that a little bit. I mean, they played incredibly well. Like I said, I thought Rashid was the man of the match. I thought Will played really well. I think Alexi has played well when he's had the opportunity. So, I mean, it's a good problem to have. To have those three guys plus Kalen Ryden, and when we're not injured, we've got some real depth back there, obviously. So I guess the positive thing about the entire thing is there's not necessarily a wrong answer on this, right? I assume we're going to play a back three until I see otherwise. I don't know why we wouldn't. But yeah, you've got the opportunity to play Will Seymour, Alexi Swahi, Rashid Tate, Kalen Ryden, any of those three guys back there, any three of those guys rather back there, I think would be great decisions. And again, if Suggsy's healthy, that also changes the way you play, right? So maybe it's Suggsy on the left and Harry on the right. Maybe it's Suggsy on the left and Brucey on the right. Maybe Suggsy goes over to the right. We've seen him do that a few times. Ultimately, maybe Ratty's available. Maybe Ratty is an option for the first time this season.
Where does Ratty play?
Left,
if he's an option.
Yeah, he play in kind of the role that Suggsy typically plays.
Okay,
that's on that left side. At least that's what he did in Ghana when he was playing in Ghana. But I mean, who knows? Maybe Zach wants to play him on the right. Don't know.
Right.
What we've seen on those wing roles is that Zach likes to flip them around, right? Suggsy's played on both sides. Brucey's played on both sides. Harry's played on both sides. That's never really. Go ahead.
He's more of a one of those wing backs than an Austin or a Swahi position.
Yep, and Yerzy is another example, right? He's played on both sides of that too, but obviously it doesn't look like he's going to be available tomorrow.
All right, well, David, we know you don't do scoreline predictions, so I'll throw it over to Jacob and Earl. Guys, let's get predictions on scoreline tomorrow night, Oakland Roots SC.
3-1?
2-0.
3-1, 2-0. Okay. I like those. I think those are both I think they're both very positive. I think we've been playing well.
So
Oakland,
a wise man told me week 1 in an elevator to stay
Lower
what was
your
the word, Jacob?
expectations.
lower
your
my expectations. So I'm not lowering my expectations. I'm keeping real expectations.
Who told you to lower your
Especially-
expectations?
I
Edamar.
can't reveal my source.
I will.
Well-
It was Edamar.
Do not lower your expectations.
Well,
Have high
granted, we did
expectations.
predict 4-0 and 5-0. So
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe lower expectations.
so yeah,
I mean-
so I'm not lowering my expectations. I'm just keeping real expectations.
2-0 would be
especially
a
on
great
short
result.
week.
2-0 would be great, Earl. 2-0 would be awesome. I
Yeah.
would love to.
And I'm only calling 2. So if we didn't play Saturday, I would probably call 3-0, 4-0. But because we played on Saturday, I'm calling it 2-0
So-
just because of the
so you're not-
exhaustion.
You're not changing anything. It's just a matter of having played Saturday. And
Hey,
if
keep real expectations.
okay,
Okay, so,
all right.
so a couple cool. Oh, Seth, do your prediction, and then I want to hit you with a couple cool things about the match tomorrow.
Yeah. And to what you guys were predicting early on, I do feel like we have the attacking capability to go off for 3 goals, 4 goals every now and then. I don't see it being like an every week thing. I do think a 2-0 result is good here tomorrow night.
So a couple cool things about the match tomorrow night. It will be Nico Brett's 150th regular season USL Championship match. There's a few close milestones that are coming up. Chris Wehan is 1 assist away from 30 for his USL Championship regular season career, which would make him 10th all time in the history of the USLC. Alex Tambakis is 4 saves away from becoming from second place all time in the USL Championship in saves. So he could potentially get that tomorrow night. He would pass Brandon Miller or tie Brandon Miller with 4, pass him with 5, and would be behind only. You guys know who's ahead of him?
I do. Hold on.
It's a name that should be familiar to you.
It's Newton, isn't it?
It is Evan Newton.
Yeah.
Evan Newton, and he's well ahead at 481. But yeah,
I don't know how many more he's going to get this year, but that's a topic for another day.
well, I mean, he's had plenty of opportunities to make saves so far.
I don't know if he'll. I want to see Phil in there.
So do some El Paso fans. It seems like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
maybe
then-
I should root for Newton to stay in there.
And if
all the El Paso fans.
if we were to get a shutout tomorrow, it would move Alex into sole possession of 7th all time in shutouts in USL Championship history. So some things to keep an eye on tomorrow. Pretty cool.
Yeah, so very, very cool notes there.
Oh,
All
one
right.
more.
Oh,
One more.
yeah.
If Nico gets 2 goals, he would move into a tie for 5th all time in the USL Championship with Chandler Hoffman at 66. And obviously Chandler is retired, so I don't think he's going to cause any more issues for Nico.
Yeah, it was very cool talking those milestones the other night with you. You kept bringing them up throughout the match, and I know we were all kind of hoping that Alex wouldn't get there, all in one match. But
Yeah, if he got 8 saves in a match, it would have been a problem, probably.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, that fantastic show. Thank you guys all for being here. I do have one final question before we do have Jacob close us out. I know it's early, but I have to ask: what's the biggest surprise 3 matches into the season?
I mean,
Biggest surprise.
it's got to be Lights, right? Like, I know we handled them, and then they did lose. Who'd they lose to? Crap.
They lost to Memphis.
Yes. But for them to do what they did to Phoenix, and then whatever the hell that was in El Paso, those 2 results alone this early in the season are going to be the biggest. Like, wait, what did that? I mean, I remember the El Paso match. It was 0-0, and then I went to go put the kids to bed, and all of a sudden it was 4-1. That was insane. So to me, it's Las Vegas this early in the stage.
So if you're asking around the league, what's the biggest surprise?
Yeah.
It's got to be Loudon for me. I mean, they 2 wins, 1 draw. They haven't given up a goal yet. 4 goals for, none against. They beat New York. Let me pull up. Hold on, I have them up here. Drew with Miami 0-0, despite being down to 10 men. And they opened up the season with the win over Indy 11. And Indy's been a big disappointment. That's been a surprise as well. Frankly, I thought they would be pretty good. But, I mean, something's cooking over there in Loudoun. I think they are a playoff team. I know it's early, but if you had told me before the season that Loudoun was a playoff team, I may have laughed at you. I think they're good. I think they're a real good team.
Earl, what's yours?
So I actually have 2. One we're pretty familiar with, and Jerry, if you're with us today, you might want to close your
Jerry.
ears.
I don't think Jerry is alive right now.
I haven't
And
seen
that's
him
exactly
before
what-
the El Paso match.
I haven't seen him all year. He's been dormant.
That's actually what I'm surprised about is the El Paso 0-3 start or winless start. And just kind of, I know it's early, like we've all said, just kind of how bad Phoenix has played and just their 1 win all season.
Yeah, those are two that are definitely a surprise. I forget about Loudoun because I forget about the East. To be completely honest, not disparaging the East at all. I only have so much bandwidth to cover the league, and it is focused on the West more often.
The simulation is where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Loudon, I think they might have won the Wooden Spoon last year. So yeah, it's a drastic turnaround for them so far early on.
We need to get Adam on. I know we don't play him this year, but talking to Adam from what is it now? Next in Line?
Next in Line, yeah.
Yeah, from the Next in Line podcast last year, when we played Loudoun, a match I would rather forget.
Yep, you and me both, buddy.
He was pretty sad and understandably so. So I'd love to get him on now when he's in a little bit better mood. But the only thing about the Loudoun match is that it was our last home loss. And so it is easy to remember when that was and know that we have, 16 home matches in a row without being beaten. And that is currently the longest active streak since Phoenix lost. And that is surprising and also very cool.
It was the only match we lost all of last season. The referee in that match really just kind of ruined that whole record, man.
Yeah. Otherwise we would have been right there with El Paso and Phoenix and the talk of home matches and whatnot. But I think part of what's surprising about it is some of those draws felt like losses because they were late, giving up a goal late, like we've talked about earlier. So, but
I'm going to be honest. The draw on Saturday felt like a loss.
Yeah.
Until I watched Zach's Facebook message on Facebook, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, we're good.
We're okay.
Yeah. For me, you guys talk about El Paso and Loudoun and Vegas and Phoenix, Birmingham Legion. I mean, obviously they're replacing Nico. They're having a bit of a rebuild over there. They haven't quite figured out what they're doing yet. I mean, they're winless so far on the season, 1 draw, 2 losses. Kind of concerning there. I mean, I think they can turn it around, but who knows? Still a long, long way to go.
All of my Birmingham knowledge comes from Kaler from the USL show, and he lays it out pretty clearly that they've dealt with a crapload of injuries. I mean, we have to an extent, but they were a thinner team than we are. They didn't have quite the depth, and they've had a lot of injuries, and then they had a player retire basically after the first match. So
And what I would say about Birmingham too is they have played, you could argue, 3 of the top 5 teams in the USL Championship in Colorado Springs, FC Tulsa, and Tampa Bay. So they've gotten off to a tough start, certainly, but I think very similarly to El Paso, they're not a bad team. They're gonna make the playoffs. They're gonna be a good team. I think Birmingham's gonna compete to be one of the best teams in the East, in my opinion.
It speaks to Colorado's last year and a half or so that we didn't mention them as a surprise, because they have looked probably better than anybody else in the league so far this year, and the fact that we're not surprised by that speaks to what they've been building really since 2019. I think even 2020 we saw glimpses of what they were doing and how well they were coming along, and then they made a couple more changes and bringing in Burke and then the signings that they made last offseason and this offseason have them sitting really well.
We lost Jacob.
Yep, we sure did.
But I
yeah,
agree with you.
yeah,
Colorado Springs is going to be very, very good, and I can't wait for. We don't play them till like August or something like that,
yeah.
but it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about them last year, talking about just how good they looked, and even with the roster changes that they've had, like they've been able to keep up, the changes that they want to do, and they look really good right now.
I mean, they're going to score a ton of goals between. You got Barry, you got Galena, you got Belmar, you got Lindley in the midfield. I mean, they're going to score a ton of goals. They may give up a decent number of goals too, and they haven't so far, but I think their goal is just to outscore whoever they play.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know what happened with Jacob's internet, but we'll figure that out here in just a minute. But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap up our show. David, do you have details you can give us on the new podcast yet, or is that still kind of under wraps?
It's not. I mean, it's the same podcast as before. It's just we're picking up for season 2. The reason we haven't started yet is we just got in some new podcast equipment. So I think we're gonna switch up the format a little bit. I don't think we're gonna do the live stream thing anymore, which I think is good and bad. Right, allows us to kind of take some time and make sure that we're editing everything in a way that makes sense and make sure it sounds as good as possible. So, but beyond that, I would expect probably our first episode here in the next week or two. Should be a lot of fun. It's United Sessions. Obviously, you guys know it. And yeah, tune in and it should be a lot of fun.
I still have to say the best United Sessions episodes you guys ever had. I mean, they were all great, but the best one you guys had was when Tyler and Many did play-by-play on cats running at mirrors, and that was I had never laughed so hard in my life. So if you could bring those two back just to narrate like cats walking on treadmills or something, that'd be great.
Yeah, let's see if we can get that in there. And then maybe we add in like Andy Hageman. I get the radio side in there as well. Just do kind of 3 of them at once. That'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, Jacob, while you're gone, we kind of like started to close out the show. So yeah, we got we were talking obviously switchbacks and so yeah, we all kind of agreed like they look really good. And they're going to be dangerous this year. So
100%.
All right, Jacob, you want to get us out of here for tonight?
Yeah, of course. Aaron, I'm upset if you guys talked so much crap about the Spurs while I was gone, because I'd have been right there with you. I don't mind talking crap about the Spurs sometimes. I just don't like to hear about you guys doing good. So as long as that wasn't the case, then let's just get rid of David here as he's showing this chart. No, David, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure. It's always nice to have somebody that has a little more knowledge of the club and just what you did with the Open Cup. Not only this year having the home match and stuff, but Sombrero, man, I'm surrounded. Not only this year what you did with the club, but in 2019 with that run that we had and all the work that you had as president of the Curse there, just doing all that. It was incredible then. And looking back, I didn't talk about it earlier, but when Frater scored that equalizer against Rapids, I was in my living room watching on my phone with my headphones, because at the time we had a newborn and a 2-year-old. And I woke them both up because I jumped up screaming. And so it is also a memory that I will never forget, and probably one of the top 2 or 3 sports moments. So just appreciate you. Appreciate everybody in the chat. And I'm not sure what our schedule, did we decide what our schedule is for next week?
So because the match is on Tuesday, we're not going to do a live show next week. Jacob and I will be out at the match. I've also talked to Audrey. So we'll sit down and we'll record something after the match. The 3 of us can. Then we'll put that up on podcast services later that week.
Okay. So there you have it. So in 2 weeks, we'll be back. We'll talk about the Open Cup. I think we actually have an off week that week. So maybe we can do some weird stuff. Earl can finally get his WrestleMania talk in, because I know he's excited to be going there next week. And
I can't wait.
Yeah. And he'll be on the road back on Tuesday night too. So Tuesday's just not going to work, but we'll keep you guys posted. And I can't wait till we get to come back on here and have all this stupid Arsenal fans in our chat again. And that's what United does, is it brings Tottenham fans and Arsenal fans together for one united cause, which is saying a lot. So I appreciate everybody, and until next time, somos unidos.
All right, guys. So we're not gonna end the live stream here. We are gonna do a little cut in our audio. I promised Earl we do some WrestleMania talk. So if you want to stick around for that, please stick around. Earl and I are gonna do a special episode of that.
Thanks, guys.
David, thank you so
Thanks,
much for
David.
being here.
No worries. Talk to you guys soon.
All right, see you, David. So yeah, if you're in the chat, guys, oh man, fantastic show. David Carl, super glad to have him on. We wanted to talk some Open Cup. We did that, and gave us a lot of insight into 2019 and then the process of getting a match here this year. So yeah, so like I said, we're gonna do some WrestleMania. Jacob, are you gonna stick around for this, or
I would if I haven't had a headache since 6 o'clock. So
okay?
I'm actually gonna. It's not a cap; it's a headband. Get it right, sombrero man. And so I'm gonna bail. And I also don't want to deal with gunners and forehead talk in the chat. So we will talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right, see you, Jacob.
See ya.
All right. So yeah, guys, like I said, Earl and I are gonna do some WrestleMania talk. Promised him we would do it. Earl's going out of town this week, so Earl will just we'll do a quick intro, and then we'll just talk for a little bit about WrestleMania. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a special edition of Somos Mas. This is our WrestleCast. Joining me tonight, we have Earl Nieto, and of course, my name is Seth Bidoff. And I promised Earl we were going to do some WrestleMania talk. Earl is going to be out of town this weekend for WrestleMania, taking place over at at Jerry World over in Dallas. So I mean, Earl. I mean, let's just get right into it. I mean, you are obviously a big WWE fan. You and I have talked WWE before. We've tried to get Jacob to watch a little bit of it. I grew up.
You can't convince old people to you can't teach old dogs new tricks.
No, you certainly can't. And I'm older than Jacob, obviously, but I grew up in WCW country, and so I was always aware of the Monday Night Wars and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, WrestleMania this weekend is I'm fairly certain this isn't your first pay-per-view, correct?
No, so this will actually be my 10th WrestleMania.
10th WrestleMania. Okay. And this one is 52? Trying to make sure.
WrestleMania 38.
Oh, this is 38. Okay. Why did I think it was like 52?
I have no idea. But yeah, so I actually first went to WrestleMania.
Crap, I'm as old as WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I actually first went to WrestleMania in I think it was my junior year of high school. I believe. It was WrestleMania 28. No. It wasn't in Atlanta. So whichever one that was. No, it was in Orlando. So that was my junior year of high school in Orlando. WrestleMania 26 or something like that. No, 25 was Texas, 26 was Arizona, so 24. So WrestleMania 24, I was in Atlanta when Edge faced Undertaker in the main event. Undertaker wasn't allowed to use Hell's Gate, which whoever doesn't know that, I don't know how many people we still have on here. Hell's Gate is the Undertaker who is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, very well deserved this weekend, which I will be there. That's actually one of my highlights this weekend. Not only am I going to be hanging out at WrestleMania, we have a full wrestling plan weekend. So we're driving to Lubbock on Thursday to go watch some indie wrestling because every wrestling counts. And then Friday morning, we're getting up and driving to Dallas. We have Friday Night SmackDown, the Hall of Fame, and then Saturday we have WrestleMania Night 1, Sunday WrestleMania Night 2, Monday the Monday after Raw, or the Raw after WrestleMania, which is usually all the returns and the big show to go to, one of the big shows to go to. But yeah, so My first one was WrestleMania 24 in Orlando, where that was exciting just because I wasn't sure. I had stopped watching wrestling for a couple of years, so I wasn't sure what I was getting into again. I was went with my brother, and then I was hooked all over again. And then year after year, I skipped a couple of years. So I skipped one of the New York ones. I skipped. That's it, just a New York one. And then I went to different. I love it. You get to travel all over the country. If you're lucky and you fly to different places and you don't drive, you are more than likely to encounter one of the wrestlers, if not all the wrestlers, at the airport at 5 a.m. A note to any fan that is a fan and wants to try to get an autograph at 5 a.m. at an airport, don't do it. It's not a pretty sight. I'm gonna tell you now.
Yeah, I can't imagine that too many celebrities want to be asked for autographs at 5 a.m. So, so let's talk a little bit, little WrestleMania here. I've never been to a WrestleMania match. Like I said, I grew up in WCW country. I actually met Cody Rhodes, Dustin Runnels. I met Dusty Rhodes. Because they were friends with my stepbrothers. So I've met them. I've met a couple of different wrestlers, like Stone Cold Steve Austin used to work out at a gym in Douglasville. So like my parents met him. And so, for me, like it's, watching it now, it's a bit of a throwback to, when I was staying up late on Monday nights watching kids, or, trying to find like the scrambled pay-per-view channel, watch it that way. But now obviously it's on Peacock. It's a premium live event or whatever. And so, because of the Peacock subscription I have, I can watch all of them. And so I remember, we talked last year, WrestleMania, first time back live, I think 2 years, I think it was there, Raymond James Stadium down in Tampa Bay, 2-night event. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the first time that WrestleMania had been a 2-night event.
No, that was actually the second time. So this will be their third year doing 2-night events. The first 2-night event was 2 years ago, and they were.
Wasn't it in like
in
Dubai
Raymond
or something?
No, so WrestleMania was actually in the Performance Center because of COVID. It was in the peak of COVID, so they're in the Performance Center, and they had 2-night event, only to try to get viewers to watch, and they tried to hype it up a whole lot. And then obviously last year, Raymond J Stadium, they decided to continue the 2-night event, which I personally love because you're getting 2 nights for the price of one. And it was just incredible to see because they were capped at 25,000 because Florida was still COVID stricken for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So they're capped at 25,000, but the fact that 25,000 people showed up to what most people would say is fake wrestling, and just enjoy it. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is to have the time of your life to enjoy it. It's, for most people, a once in a lifetime thing. You usually don't go back to a WrestleMania. You usually don't go back to a WrestleMania. Usually you go to one and you're done and you enjoyed it and that's it. But the fact that 25,000 people showed up to that, and it started off rough anyways, because so I remember it was you got to your seat, whatever, and there were pretty dark clouds overhead. So it was already kind of questionable if it was going to continue, if it was going to go on. Vince McMahon came out and said, "Welcome to WrestleMania," did his whole spiel about WrestleMania and how the fans are incredible. He and the entire locker room went back into the locker room, and then the PA came on and said, "Hey, if you're on the floor, if you have a floor seat, go seek shelter because we're now on a rain delay and lightning strikes are striking too close. Let's give it 25 to 30 minutes." So WrestleMania started late last year because of that. But yeah, and it's just been it's a treat to go to. It's enjoyable. It's something fun. It's So it's weird to say because it's almost like United, where it's a whole group of people together for one reason. So now you have 25,000 people. So last year, for example, you have 25,000 people getting together for two reasons. One, to celebrate the end of some kind of crazy pandemic we were in, and two, to enjoy wrestling. This year there'll be over 100,000 people because that's what Dallas Stadium, or that's what AT&T Stadium does in Jerry World. Last time they held it in Dallas, WrestleMania 30, maybe 29. They had 101,000 or something like that. So yeah, so this year will be 100,000 plus people gathering for the end of COVID, and the love of a sport that some people don't think is real.
Yeah, it's. I think in this day and age that most people understand that it's more entertainment than actual sport. Now, that's not to say that the guys that the men and women that do this aren't athletic as hell. Like, you look at the shape that they have to be in, you look at the things they put their body through. You know, these guys, they are, as much as it is a stage and it's a production, like, they are out there performing night in and night out, putting their bodies on the line. You know, obviously, you know, we know the history. We know that guys have gotten seriously injured or have died performing
Recently.
Yeah,
Recently. There's a star, Big E, who was going to take a normal suplex like everyone else does, a belly-to-belly suplex, and there wasn't enough force for the actual suplex itself, and he wound up landing on his neck and breaking his C2 and his C4, or fracturing his C2 and his C4 in his vertebrae.
Mhm.
I mean, it's almost as real as you can possibly make it. I mean, jumping off of ladders, 20-foot ladders, jumping off 20-foot Hell in the Cells, or cells, because people don't know what a Hell in a Cell is. Jumping off a 20-foot cell for glory, I guess you would call it. I mean, you can't fake that.
Right.
You can land right, but it still hurts. Trust me, I could jump off my roof, and I'm gonna tell you now, it's gonna hurt.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, and guys like me, and I think you're old enough. You remember like Undertaker, Mankind, Hell in a Cell. You remember the TLC matches. You the Extreme Rules, like the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian. Like, we remember
And the
stuff like
Dudleys.
that, and the Dudleys, and yeah, and you know, it goes back, and so you do have to respect, you know, what they do and what they put their bodies through. You know, and guys like Edge have talked about the toll that it takes on their body and the surgeries they go through. Shawn Michaels has talked about it.
Jacob, I thought you're going to bed.
We've seen guys like DDP come out and, you know, talk about the pain that his body has gone through and how he got, you know, doing yoga and rejuvenating his body. And so, yeah, you know, while it is entertainment and we give it a lot of crap from time to time, you know, we talked about Elimination Chamber and some of the stuff that we saw, but you still have to admit that, you know, these guys, they put on a hell of a show, you know? And so talking about Elimination Chamber, that was the last major show before WrestleMania. And, you know, I'm looking at the card here for WrestleMania, and, you know, let's kind of go through this a little bit. Obviously, the big one is Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. You and I have kind of talked about this a little bit, and I didn't realize that Bobby Lashley had been put into a match on the WrestleMania.
Yeah, he returned last night.
Okay, yeah. See, I didn't realize that, and so we kind of talked about, you know, was Bobby Lashley going to come in? You know, is it going to be an interference type deal? Are we going to see a unified champion, you know, after WrestleMania? So with the card the way it is now, and we'll just start right at the top, you know, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, is there some sort of interference, or do we get a universal champion at the end?
We will have a undisputed universal champion. I can guarantee that part. The fact that WWE has advertised a title unification there will be a unified champion. I will totally mark out for Jacob in the chat who doesn't know what mark means. It means freak. I mean, just totally fanboy out on it. And there's been some kind of rumblings going around that The Rock is in Hawaii, which makes it easier for him to fly into Dallas. Because if he flies out of Florida, there's gonna be a whole bunch of chaos because people are gonna know he's going to Dallas. It's gonna just spoil the surprise. So I have a feeling, just from what I've read, that The Rock will show up and either cost Brock Lesnar the match and fall in line with the tribal chief in the bloodline, or B, I think we have a troll in the chat, or B, he screws Roman Reigns over and sets up a WrestleMania match for next year.
Okay, I mean, that's interesting. And so that brings up a question. And so I know years ago I used to be able to go online and you could find the results of the matches beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that still the case? Can you are the results still posted ahead of time? Like certain reporters or websites would leak them.
No, they've gotten pretty good at holding back on the leaks. I haven't seen any leaks in maybe a year and a half now. But yeah, they've gotten really, really good at keeping it top secret. I mean, there's only, especially like a WrestleMania event. Especially like a WrestleMania event where it's such a huge input in a whole year into it that I highly doubt anyone but Vince McMahon, Triple H, John Laurinaitis, maybe just those three know the actual outcomes, and maybe Shane McMahon because he's part of the family. Maybe those 3 or 4 are the only ones that actually know the storyline and the storyline outcome.
So I know that back in the day, guys like Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff used to be majorly involved. And there were some matches where the wrestlers didn't even find out like what the outcome was going to be until like as they were walking out, and they'd have to choreograph the finishing. And obviously Bischoff is no longer involved in WWE. Paul Heyman is still very visible.
Yeah.
Do you think he's still involved in I don't know. Is he still involved in that side of it, or is he just
So Paul Heyman is still a producer.
Okay.
He produces all of Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and Bobby Lashley's matches. And Paul Seth Rollins. So the 4 top names in WWE get the top producers, which is Paul Heyman.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Heyman he's a creative mastermind. I love Paul Heyman to death. I didn't like him with Brock Lesnar, but I love him in his role right now as the wise man to Roman Reigns. Eric Bischoff is still in WWE as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I knew he has his podcast. 82
he
days,
doesn't.
Whatever it's called.
Yeah, he doesn't have like a producing role, but he does have a creative input when it comes to new storylines and stuff like that. And he's working pretty much in Vince McMahon's office, giving him ideas on what future storylines to work or future concept matches to make up and come up with that.
Okay, I didn't even realize he was still with WWE. Like I thought that he had left a long time ago. So
yeah, no. So if you see them on TV, like even if they make like a cameo appearance here and there, they're still involved with WWE.
Okay,
it's when you don't see them on TV or when you don't hear about them is when you know that they've actually fallen off.
Oh, okay. And I know like Paul Heyman for years, he really rose. He really brought up his stature, with ECW, and so I loved watching ECW. Like it was at the time, like to me, it was a lot more entertaining than what was out there now. And And
Mhm.
honestly, I kind of feel like during the whole Attitude Era, with Monday Night Wars and all that kind of stuff, ECW to me was the best product out there. And you don't really see as much of the hardcore type stuff now. I mean, yes, you have Elimination Chamber, but doesn't seem to be as prevalent now.
So
And
they've taken a different route, especially with Vince McMahon's wife being a politician.
mhm.
They've taken a more family route where it's more PG. So you won't see as much blood, you won't see as much gore, you won't see as many people being thrown off. I'm gonna watch how I say this one. You won't see as many people being thrown off buildings or structures. And I said that because last year or year before last, we did watch Baron Corbin throw Rey Mysterio off of a building.
Yeah. Okay. And the reason that I brought that up is because there's a match on the Sunday card, and I have to ask. It's an anything goes match between Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn. Now, number one, Johnny Knoxville is like 50, and he's been doing Jackass for like 3 decades now. And I gave a lot of credit to the Bad Bunny match last year, which I thought was fantastic. I thought Bad Bunny came in, did a fantastic job. They sold that match. It played really well. What the fuck is Johnny Knoxville doing at WrestleMania? And is this just like a gimmick to help promote Jackass
Yes.
Forever?
So yeah, that's exactly what it was a gimmick to promote Jackass. Me being the wrestling fan, I mean, I grew up with different big names being in WWE. Mike
Mhm.
Tyson, Barry Bonds. Was it Barry Bonds?
I don't think Barry Bonds had anything to do
No,
with
it
WWE.
was the guy that got tombstone by Kane every freaking week. He was the host of The Price is Right.
Oh, Bob Barker?
No,
Or Drew Carey?
Drew Carey. Drew Carey.
Okay.
So we've seen Mike Tyson, Drew Carey, and just throughout the years, we've seen different big names come through. We saw Kevin Federline come through one year. We saw one year they had a special general manager every different week, so they had different people like Kevin Costner and just different. So they've always had the star aspect of it all, but the fact that they took spots away from athletes like Finn Balor, athletes like Ricochet, Damian Priest, who's worked his freaking ass off this year. They've took spots away from those three, and those are just naming 3 of them, and given them to stars like Johnny Knoxville, another B-list actor who turned boxer who is doing it for the money, which we'll talk about here soon. It bugs me, and it annoys the crap out of me because as a wrestling fan, I'm not going to watch Jackass. I can care less about Johnny Knoxville or Logan Paul. I can really care less about those two. Now, Bad Bunny was a different thing because he was there pre-Royal Rumble, at the Royal Rumble, at Elimination Chamber, and then at WrestleMania. So he did the whole tour. He didn't just show up and say, hey, you want a match? Let's do it. So yeah, so I'm actually kind of annoyed by Johnny Knoxville just because of the fact that he's taking away a spot from athletes that work their freaking ass off all year to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're looking at 2 different champions right now, or one champion and one that just lost a championship, not on a WrestleMania match.
Yeah, it's just, you talked about, Mike Tyson coming back in. Obviously, he was in DX. And I was scrolling through TikTok earlier and I saw, where he helped Steve Austin beat Shawn Michaels for the title years ago. But yeah, pop culture has for a long time crossed over with wrestling. You know, you go even as far back as like you could say Andy Kaufman, you know, back with Jerry Lawler, and then, you know,
Miss
in
Elizabeth.
Miss Elizabeth, and then you've got, you know, guys like Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone, and, you know, what's his name, David Arquette, you know, like, so for a long time, wrestling and pop culture.
By the way, David Arquette was the worst WCW champion ever.
Probably. Oh yeah, without a doubt. So yeah, but I get it, and to me, like, seeing Johnny Knoxville on the card, it's just like, it's dumb. Like, it makes sense that it's an anything goes match, but I don't expect anything to come of this. I expect, you know, Johnny Knoxville is going to get his ass kicked eventually, unless like Steve-O runs the guy over with a Zamboni or something. But I mean, Steve-O's living the straight and narrow now.
Unfortunately, Sami Zayn's like he's like a jobber, is what they call him.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised to see Sami Zayn get his ass kicked. Because they do like to put over the stars, especially during WrestleMania.
Yeah, that is true. And man, they do that pretty much every big show. They try to put someone over, or, you know, at least when they're building those storylines for the next year, you know, they try to do that. So, so I don't really know where you want to go with this. I'm looking at the card. I see that there's 3 titles matches each night. We've already kind of mentioned, you know, Lesnar and Roman Reigns. I see that Seth Rollins' opponent is going to be announced on Saturday night, apparently.
So that one, I think I know who's going to be his opponent, and I couldn't be more excited about it, actually. So the guy who's rumored, and it's only a rumor, to face Cody or Seth Rollins at WrestleMania is the guy that left WWE to go start up WWE's competition, AEW. Cody Rhodes.
I've seen some things around social media kind of saying that he was coming back to WWE. Like, would this make an appropriate return for him?
Yeah. Because it'd be him facing a big name, which is what he wants. He wants to face the big name people, and that's why he left WWE in the first place, because he was being packaged as Stardust. Which, for most of you who don't know, Stardust is Cody Rhodes. We'll put it that way. Painted in black like Gold Dust, who's his real life brother, with a silver star on his face, under the name of Stardust, who is Gold Dust, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I like the idea. I love the idea. I wish that they would have hyped him a little more and actually had him show up on Raw and actually call out Cody or Seth Rollins. But the way that they had Seth Rollins build up to the match and build up and just promo every week, including this past week where they did a video clip of him at the WWE headquarters and having to wait his turn and do all that fun stuff with Vince McMahon. I love it. If you're a fan of the entertainment aspect of it, there it is, because that's all entertainment right there. That's one person knowing how to talk on a mic and how to sell the crowd into something that he loves to do.
All right, so yeah, where do you want to go with this? Do you want to talk? Are there any of these, like, are there any matches that outside of the championship matches that stand out to you? Do you want to just talk about the championship matches?
We can just talk about championship matches, really.
All right, let's start Saturday night then. Becky Lynch defending the WWE Raw Women's Championship against Bianca Belair. Bianca, obviously, we saw last year WrestleMania main event. Put on a hell of a match. She was part of the Elimination Chamber. I think she won it, correct? Okay, yeah. So she won the Elimination Chamber 6-8 weeks ago, whenever it was. So what's the draw in this match, and what do you think the outcome is going to be?
So the draw in this match, and it's something that has forever been looked down on, is women's wrestling.
Mhm.
Women's wrestling is 1,000 times better than what it used to be, and 1,000,000 times more than what it used to be in the Attitude Era. In the Attitude Era, you grew up with bra and panty matches where it was just a gimmick. Women were just a gimmick in the Attitude Era, because that's exactly what it was trying to be risky and try to be showsy and all this other stuff. To where now they're showing that, hey, look, women are more than just bra and panty matches, which I'm not complaining about, by the way. And now they're showing that women are actually have talent. Women like Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, those two right there are phenomenal. They're incredible athletes. Jacob, go to sleep. They're phenomenal athletes that just love to put on a show.
Yeah, you talk about the evolution of women's wrestling. Like, I remember even like when I was a teenager, seeing like Mae Young and the Fabulous Moolah still coming out, and like Sable and China, and and don't get me wrong, Sable was a draw for a very specific reason, but I felt like continuing to bring back female wrestlers such as Mae Young and Moolah was just like kind of a slap in the face. Like it wasn't really doing anything to advance women in wrestling. And you had, Stephanie McMahon would get involved every now and then. And like I said, Sable, Trish Stratus, and other names like that came in, and they were sex sells, But watching the physicality and the ability of like Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair, like it's incredible to watch. Like I think they perform just as well, if not better, than a lot of the male matches I've seen recently.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. There are some matches, so like, and I'm just going to name a few women wrestlers: Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, and Sasha Banks, and Rhea Ripley. So those 6 right there, you put them in a match, I will watch them over any Rey Mysterio match, over any Miz match, or any John Cena match, because that's how much effort they're putting into it to show that they're worth what they're putting out. Just the work that they put in is incredible, because they have to, and it's sad to say it, they have to take it that much step higher in order to compete with men's wrestling.
Yeah, you mentioned the Mysterios. I see they're on the card, and like I'm going, man, Rey Mysterio's got to be getting old. He's 47, and he's always been fun to watch. But yeah, like it's, we've talked about it in the past. Like some of these women's matches have just like outperformed all expectations. And the one, Bianca and I forget who she faced off against at WrestleMania last year. Was it Sasha Banks? It was Banks Belair. And it was just a phenomenal match, and it really was. And I think that I feel like Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair, like being the opener, is kind of a disservice. Like I feel like that should be more of the main event, or a co-main, because you look at the main event, Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey, 2 more names you just brought up,
and that's more than likely not even the main event.
You don't think so?
No. I'm pretty sure Saturday Night Closing will be the KO show with Kevin Owens and Stone Cold.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I was because I don't even see that on the card here, so that's why I'm.
Yeah, because that's not a match.
Okay.
That's just a talk. It's just a promo shoot. But the way I see that going down is one of the two ending up with a stunner, and beer being poured down their back.
It's Stone Cold, so it's makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. So yeah, looking at the other matches, the other championship matches for tonight, the Usos against Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. Do I have that right?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
Rick
Yeah.
Boogs.
Okay, Rick
That's
Boogs.
exactly how it
I
says it on
don't even know.
SmackDown.
Don't even know who that guy is. But
So Rick Boogs is some random guy that just like appeared out of nowhere.
okay.
Shinsuke Nakamura though, he is phenomenal. He's the one that, for those of you that actually watched the soccer version of this podcast a couple weeks back, I was happily on my office chair jumping around to Shinsuke Nakamura's song. He's the one that he's entertaining. That's all he is. He's a Japanese star, and just super, super talented, entertaining.
All right. Who walks away with the title from that one? Usos or
Usos. It's
Usos?
the Usos.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I don't see them giving away the tag title to a guy who won the 24/7 championship a couple times. I just looked at Rick Boogs. Apparently, he was Johnny Average
Yeah.
and won the 24/7 title, which apparently Mick Foley won back the other day in a TikTok. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
But then lost it again to Dana Brooks.
Yeah, always fun to see Mick Foley. He's a super nice guy, apparently.
So no,
by all
actually, I take that back. Mick Foley beat a fan for their
Yeah.
replica belt, thinking that it was the real one when it actually wasn't. Which I've always said it, and I will continue saying it. If you take a championship belt, a replica championship belt, to a live event, you should be subject to have to defend it that night.
That's not a bad idea. I think that would be a lot of fun. But
You should be subject to have to defend it.
yeah, Mick Foley, probably my favorite wrestler of all time. Like, he's just everything he did in the ring, from his different personas and just the effort that he put in. Like, it's just so much fun to see what he does now with this celebrity, and he's an author and he does so much others. Like, fantastic.
See, I cannot pick one favorite wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, because you have different generational talent. I mean, the 90s, you have Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
The 2000s, you have The Rock, Triple H, Stone Cold, The Undertaker. 2010s, you have John Cena, Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio. 2020s, you have Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar. I mean, you can go on forever. So I can't put a favorite wrestler, and I left one out, and he is right here on my shoulder. He is the captain of this team right here.
Yeah.
I can't figure out this. Which finger's which? This one. There we go.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's just
so The Rock, I mean, he's once in a lifetime talent, to where he spanned through 20 years. He's won every championship. He is a third generational superstar who, once again, worked his ass off to get to where he's at right now.
and there are so many other guys that you didn't mention, even going back, farther to, to my era, Ultimate Warrior, Psychosis, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, the
Exactly.
Four Horsemen, Sting. There's just so many names, and there's even more, more recent ones that you didn't mention. Like, I would throw AJ Styles in there, Edge, Christian Hardy Boys, the Dudleys. They're just, Sabu. Like, there's just so many guys that you could throw in and would just put on an amazing show. Like, and it's really hard to pick out a favorite, like you said. So yeah, we mentioned Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. We didn't talk about the match itself. Ronda Rousey obviously showed up again recently in WWE. It's thrown into the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. Charlotte Flair is defending. Ronda Rousey, obviously, WWE fame, UFC fame. People know the name. She's obviously going to be a draw for this show.
See, I'm actually okay with her. I'm okay with her being on the card.
Okay.
Because she's not the UFC champion. She's not the Hollywood A-lister. I mean, yeah, she's in movies. Yeah, she's on TV shows. Yeah, she's UFC Hall of Famer. whatever all those accolades are. But she is a current active WWE superstar.
Mm-hmm.
She was in WWE last year. She's in WWE this year. She made her return at the Royal Rumble after taking a couple months off to go start a family. So I'm okay with her being on the card. I seriously think Ronda Rousey wins it all, though.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I know they're both big names in WWE right now. All right. So looking at Sunday, 2 more matches to talk about. So this next one here, WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. Now I don't know all of these names, so you'll have to help me out here. Queen Zelina and Carmelia, who are the champions, versus Sasha Banks and Naomi, versus Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, versus Natalya and Shayna Baszler. Seems like it's going to be a fun match. I know Rhea Ripley, I know Sasha Banks, I know Liv Morgan. I'm not familiar with any of the others.
So Natalya is actually part of the Hart dynasty, Hart family.
Okay.
Me, Owen Hart, Bret Hart, the British Bulldog, Davey Hart Smith, Diego. I'm so happy to find out that one other person in this world watches wrestling as well or follows wrestling, because trust me, that is my love language. So
yeah, we figured we'd give some WrestleMania chat this week since the granddaddy of them all is this weekend. So
yeah, and I will be there, Diego. So I don't know if you're going or not. I highly recommend you buy a ticket. Meet me in Dallas. Let's be in party. So yeah, so like I was saying though, Natalya is part of the Hart family. Everyone knows the Hart family, very well renowned. Shayna Baszler, former UFC wrestler fighter, didn't really do much in UFC, but she is part of UFC, whatever they want to call it. Queen Zelina, she's on OnlyFans. So if you're on OnlyFans, I'm personally not.
No.
My wife would not approve of that, but I'm personally not on OnlyFans. But I know she's on OnlyFans. That's kind of how she got famous, was the OnlyFans shenanigans that she would pull there. Carmella has been in WWE forever. She was partnered with R-Truth for about 2 or 3 years. Who is one of my favorite all-time wrestlers because he's funny as hell. She's one of the 24/7 champions that has won the championship. She recently, shameless plug by the way, she recently started a YouTube channel with her fiance Corey Graves, who's an announcer. And they've promised to be more provocative and daring on that channel. They promised more nudity, more whole bunch of everything. I don't know what it's called because I just haven't tuned in. But I do know they have a YouTube channel there, so I'm sure if you search Carmella or Corey Graves on YouTube, you'll probably find something there. Which other ones didn't you know about?
So I don't know who. Let's see. Okay, that's it. Yeah, you mentioned Natalya, Shayna Baszler, Queen Zelina, and Carmelia. I don't know who any of those are.
Yeah, but, that's one of the that's one of the matches that's just a hogwash, and they're just buying time.
Okay.
The only one, or Naomi.
Yeah, Naomi, I'm not terribly familiar with.
Yeah, Naomi's she's hard to describe. Not trying to be racist or anything like that, but she's one of the African American performers. Her gimmick right now is glow. She's actually married to Jimmy Uso. She's very talented. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's very, very talented. But she doesn't get the push that she deserves, because she's overshadowed by everyone else. I mean, she's overshadowed by the big names of Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, who's her tag team partner.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that match is one of those matches that they're just trying to buy some time and just keep fans a little entertained for that 20-minute section.
Okay. And then the last one that we haven't talked about is the triple threat tag match for the WWE Raw Tag Team Championship. RK Bro. Now I know these two. I know Randy Orton. I know who Riddle is because he was in the Elimination Chamber. So I know who those guys are. Obviously, Randy Orton, know him. Street Profits, I've never heard of, and Alpha Academy, I have no idea who those guys are. Any thoughts on this match here?
No, I don't have any thoughts on this match other than if Randy Orton and Riddle don't win, I'm gonna be pissed.
I would say just looking at this match here, looking at the names of these teams, like you've got two names that everyone knows, and I'm sure people who are more familiar know who the Street Profits are, know who Alpha Academy is. But I can't see Randy Orton and Riddle losing the titles here. I just don't think they would write that in there, especially at WrestleMania.
So I could, but I don't. Because Randy Orton is such a veteran. I mean, he just re-signed his contract. He's having the time of his life right now being teamed with Riddle, who's one of my favorites right now. Freaking love Riddle. Hey, Randy. But yeah, so I don't see RK Bro losing the titles, especially because they just won them back. But I would not be surprised to see the Street Profits win it. I wouldn't. Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford, they've put in their time for sure. They're long overdue some kind of championship. And either one of those stars can definitely make a singles run and do some work in the singles picture too.
Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, I think we've touched on all of the major events, and I gotta say the Edge versus AJ Styles match kind of stands out to me as one too that I think could be interesting. Obviously AJ Styles and Edge, I think they've gone at it in the past. And Edge, obviously they're both very well-known names within the wrestling sphere, from across, the different promotions. And AJ Styles, I feel like has never really gotten as big of a push as he deserves. And Edge has been the top of the mountain. Edge has been in some of the best matches of all time in WWE history. And so I think this is one that could be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah,
and definitely those two are definitely phenomenal athletes, no pun intended. Only because AJ Styles is the phenomenal one.
Yeah.
So that match is gonna be good, just because any match that Edge puts on, I mean, he is talented for sure, especially in his age. He is still very talented. And AJ Styles, he's just always been good. He's good on the mic. He's good in the ring. He puts on a show to keep fans entertained. So yeah, that one will be a good match. I could not even begin to call a winner on that one.
All right. Do you have any other matches that stand out to you that you want to touch on, or?
Nope. I'm just glad we didn't talk about Logan Paul.
I intentionally avoided that one. I didn't want to talk about that one. I mean, I love the Mysterios, and I think the Miz has been a personality for a long time. Starting back with his days on MTV. But I don't want to talk about Logan Paul. I don't care. Him and his brother. I have no interest in them whatsoever. I can't wait to see Jake Paul's the boxer, right? I can't wait to see him get knocked the fuck out. I really can't.
They're both boxers.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah,
I wasn't
they both
sure.
do boxing.
Okay. Yeah. I
both
can't wait
to get knocked out.
Yeah. Yeah. They absolutely do. So, but yeah, I mean, honestly, Earl, I'm happy we got to do this. I'm happy we got to talk some WrestleMania. I know
Jacob would have stayed around.
He would have been reading this paper the whole time anyway. But no, I mean, talking to you, this is something that I've started watching a bit more. At least the premium live events, just to kind of watch, because they are a lot of fun to watch, and they do remind me of, like I said, staying up on Monday nights and Thursday nights and watching the wrestling, and even Saturday morning wrestling on TBS. It takes me back a little bit, and every now and then I see a name that I know, I'm like, okay, this is a lot of fun. But So yeah, I'm glad we got to do this. I hope you're going with your brother, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you guys are heading out of town. Be safe on your drive down. I hope you enjoy the show. And like we talked about earlier in the main show, we're not going to have a live show next week. So yeah, like I said, I enjoyed talking WrestleMania with you.
Well, I enjoyed it a whole lot, and trust me, this is 2 weeks in the making.
I know. I knew it was coming. I knew we were going to talk about it. And I knew that, with David Carl coming on as a guest tonight in the main show, I knew that, we were going to heavily focus on United and soccer and that.
See, I was going to ask David Carl, and I put it on the Facebook post, and it didn't happen. I was gonna ask him both in their prime, who wins? Hulk Hogan or The Rock?
The Rock. The Rock.
And I don't mean Hollywood Hulk Hogan. I mean original red yellow Hulk Hogan who suplexed Andre the Giant in WrestleMania 3.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're saying WrestleMania 3 Hogan, I don't know. I mean,
My point.
I think The Rock. I think even at that point, Hogan looked the role, but I still feel like The Rock was a better physical specimen.
And
so
to put it in context, here's the two superstars I'm looking at right now.
Okay.
WrestleMania 3 Hogan versus WrestleMania 17 The Rock.
Okay. I think
WrestleMania 17 was Austin Rock 3, and I think it was WrestleMania 17 was probably the best WrestleMania I've ever watched in my life.
Yeah. I got to go Prime Rock. I just do. I think he's the better athlete than Prime Hogan. Hogan was a performer, yes, and yes, he lifted Andre, and he did that, and to his credit, Andre the Giant was a phenomenal athlete, for a guy his size, and so I think Andre helped sell that quite a bit. But yeah, just looking at them, I think Prime Rock.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask David, but never got around to it because he pretty much said he opened up with, I have no idea anything about wrestling. So I was like, I can't even ask him about Hulk Hogan because he's not gonna know.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting question for sure. But yeah, like I said, I'm glad we could do this. And do you have any closing thoughts on WrestleMania this weekend?
I don't. I'm just excited for full capacity in Texas Stadium. I'll be there all weekend long, and I cannot wait.
All right, well, there you go, folks. That is our WrestleCast, our WrestleMania preview for WrestleMania 38. We'll talk WrestleMania here probably in 2 weeks. We'll recap that, since we're going to be out of town. Unless you want to do something like later next week, we can figure that out off air. But guys, if you're stick around in the chat, Jacob has been in and out. Diego, thank you so much for hopping over and throwing some comments in there. We appreciate you hanging out for this special episode. It will go live in the podcast feed later this week. It'll be some bonus content for you guys. I will have the episode 81 of Somos Moss that'll drop live tomorrow morning ahead of the Oakland Roots match. So, guys, thank you for hanging out. Earl, appreciate you for doing this. I know it's late for you. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Somos Unidos.